Chapter 2007. The old woman's hatred. Jian also clasped his hands. You praise me too much. I only managed to kill the captain of the Swords Wolf adventurers through luck. Brother Jian is far too modest. If it were possible to kill god kings through luck, then overgods killing god kings won't be a rare matter at all in the saints' world. Qi Xiang was amiable, and he smiled charmingly. Through his words, he clearly admired Jian. However, at this moment, many people in the surroundings heard Qi Xiang's words. They immediately became stunned as they all stared at Jian with surprise and shock. What? He was the overgod who defeated a god king in the arena of life and death. He killed a god king as an overgod. Is he the supreme overgod ranked first on the overgod's plaque, Mo Cheng? An intense discussion erupted in the surroundings immediately. Even a few god kings paid attention to Jian, and some of them even tried to befriend him. They were all extremely polite, without acting haughtily as a god king at all. Brother Jian, I'm staying in cabin 9 of the deck area. If you have the time, I hope we can talk again. Qi Xiang clasped his fist at Jian before turning around and leaving the convention. Qi Xiang, are we really going to just give up on the stone tablet like this? With your wealth, buying it shouldn't be anything difficult. The god king beside Qi Xiang asked after they had left the convention. Qi Xiang smiled freely. You're right, Uncle Wang. With my wealth, buying the stone tablet is indeed nothing difficult. If one god-tier healing pill isn't enough, I can take out 2, 3, or so on. I refuse to believe it won't make the old woman waver. Originally, I also desired the comprehension of the laws of the sword, but I never thought that I would meet Jian here and that he would be interested in it as well. If I contend with him, I'll definitely offend Jian. The comprehension of the laws of the sword from a primordial realm expert is very precious, but Jian is a prodigy on the overgod's plaque after all. Although he hasn't attempted it, he definitely possesses the strength to rival Mo Cheng, first on the overgod's plaque. I don't think it's worth it to offend a supreme prodigy over a stone tablet that only possesses some comprehension. The old woman who traded with Jian left the convention at a certain time. On the other hand, many people surrounded Jian. Many overgods and a few god kings had come up to befriend him. They were all extremely enthusiastic. Jian clasped his fist as he smiled apologetically. After exchanging pleasantries with all the people there, he suddenly thought of an idea. He immediately found a stone board and engraved all the materials he still needed for the twin swords on there as well as some of the unique characteristics of them. He wanted to take advantage of the convention to collect them. This is frigid hell iron. Brother Jian, I happen to have a piece here. This is true dragon wood. I have a piece. Since Brother Jian needs it, I'll give it to you. Very soon, Jian found 2 of the materials he needed, which made him extremely happy. Now, he had already collected most of the materials for forging the twin swords. All he needed was Scarlet's Sun wood and Heaven Rinsing Dew. Unfortunately, no one at the convention possessed the last 2 materials. Seeing how he could no longer benefit any further, Jian left with Kaya before the convention had ended. Afterwards, he entered seclusion once again and took out the stone tablet from the old woman. He comprehended the sword intent in there. At the same time, in another high-class cabin, the old woman sat on the ground as she held the damaged god artifact she had obtained from Jian. She carefully inspected every inch of it. Her shriveled hands trembled as she held the god artifact. Her gaze was confused at times and in a daze at other times as she reminisced the past. It was complicated. As a matter of fact, there would be intense hatred in her eyes from time to time. With so many mixed feelings, people could tell with a single glance that the god artifact was related to the old woman through some unknown connection. Master, it has been so many years already. You've fallen silent completely. I don't even know if you're dead, or if you've run off somewhere to hide. However, disciple never thought that I would see the god artifact you used to wear. Clearly, this god artifact has been repaired. If I'm right, the object used to repair it should be the extremely rare spiritual fortune fluid that is rumored to be able to repair everything. It's just that the spiritual fortune fluid used was clearly not enough. It only repaired the surface of the god artifact, so even though it seems fine now, it's still mostly useless. The old woman studied the god artifact closely. Her gaze was as profound as the endless cosmos at times, while extremely simple at other times. She was in a daze as she murmured, "Even though the surface of the god artifact has been repaired, I can still tell that it was very damaged in the past. Master, the armor you wore was a high-quality god artifact. Even some Grand Primes can't scratch high-quality god artifacts, yet the armor has become so damaged. I struggle to imagine just how terrifying your opponent was in the past. I also cannot imagine whether you managed to survive the strike of such an expert." The old woman's expression suddenly became extremely vicious. All the wrinkles on her face became twisted as rage filled her eyes. She gritted her teeth. "Master, do you think I should be grateful towards you, or should I hate you? If it weren't for your guidance in the past, I never would have been able to attain my current accomplishments. But it's also because of you that the divine generals of the heavenly palace of Bishing have hunted me down for millions of years. Even now, the pursuit hasn't ended, forcing me to change my presence and hide all the time. Although I am at the primordial realm, there's no peak organization that dares to protect me from the pursuit of the divine generals of the heavenly palace of Bishing. Master, although you managed to mold the current me, I've also been forced into desperate straits because of you. Why are they, the divine generals of the heavenly palace of Bishing, so muddle-headed? What did I do? I clearly did nothing, but because of Master, they've pursued me for so long." Chapter 2008, 3 Years of Comprehension. In the icy, dark depths of outer space, a huge spatial battleship moved at unimaginable speeds silently, just like a ghost. Currently, Jian Chen sat on a jade bed within one of the high-class cabins in the spatial battleship. He had his eyes closed as he held a stone tablet, meditating like an old monk. Powerful sword intent gradually gathered around him. The formations in the cabin were all activated. They were linked to the entire spatial battleship such that even infinite primes would not be able to smash through them. As a result, even though the sword intent around Jian Chen gradually strengthened, it was unable to cause any damage to the cabin. Currently, all of Jian Chen's attention and consciousness had fused into the sword intent of the stone tablet. He carefully comprehended the laws within the sword intent, the profound mysteries of the world. Even though the slash on the stone tablet only possessed some comprehension from a primordial realm expert, it was still a primordial realm expert after all. As a result, the sword intent was so powerful that it was truly boundless in Jian Chen's eyes. Is this sword immortal? Jian Chen shivered inside as he sensed the boundless sword intent. Even though he had already reached the partial achievement of sword spirit, and he was only 2 levels away from sword immortal, the 2 levels formed a huge chasm. Moreover, Jian Chen could vaguely sense the bearing of a sword immortal from the sword intent. It was truly like an immortal of the sword, free and unburdened, standing out from the other comprehensions in supremacy. It was on a completely different level to sword spirit. Very soon, Jian Chen entered a selfless state of cultivation as the sword intent drew away his mind. His mind was clear, having forgotten about time and forgotten about himself. However, powerful sword intent still gathered around Jian Chen. The sword intent was invisible, and it filled the entire cabin. Strands of finger-sized sword chi revolved around him like little fish. They seemed to possess their own spirits. Sword chi with spirits was a representation of the sword spirit realm. If an expert who comprehended the laws of the sword witnessed what was happening right now, they would definitely be absolutely astounded. The comprehension of the laws of the sword in Jian Chen's stone tablet was tiny. A primordial realm expert had accidentally left it there, without intentionally passing on the law, so his laws of the sword were not clearly recorded there. As a result, to comprehend anything from the stone tablet was extremely difficult. Let alone over gods, even god kings would struggle to gain anything useful from it. However, Jian Chen easily submerged himself in the mysteries of the laws of the sword in the stone tablet as an over-god. Even across the entire Saints' world, there were very few people who possessed the same affinity and talent for comprehending the laws of the sword. Recently, the most shocking matter that also garnered the most attention in the southern region of the Cloud Plain definitely happened in the Tian Yuan clan of the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian. The Tian Yuan clan possessed great fame in the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian, but they were still a tiny, nameless clan across the entire southern region in the past. However, ever since the emperor of the Shi Empire and the ancestral emperors of the Blood Sun Empire had descended there, ever since the status of the Shi Empire's princess was brought to light, the Tian Yuan clan had gone from being a nameless clan to a special clan that could shake up the southern region and even the northern region. They were special because although they were very weak right now, only in possession of a single god king who originated from the Earth Spirit sect, there were no organizations who dared to touch the Tian Yuan clan in the entire southern region. This was all because the Shi Empire's princess had come from the Tian Yuan clan. Not only was she the only daughter of the current Shi Emperor, earning all his love and affection, but she was also an elder of the Tian Yuan clan. Compared to the past, the provincial city was clearly much busier. People from clans of various sizes would come daily with rich gifts to visit the Tian Yuan clan and express goodwill. Although the Tian Yuan clan still had not truly developed, it had already received the attention of everyone. In a more remote area of the city, a black-robed man who stayed in a large manor also paid attention to the Tian Yuan clan. He basically spent all his time observing the Tian Yuan clan. He was a vice-leader of the Empyrean demon cult, Huai. Huai sat within a hall in the manor as he gazed in the direction of the Tian Yuan clan coldly. Even though he was several dozen kilometers away from the clan, his gaze seemed to be able to pierce through all the obstacles, allowing him to see the Tian Yuan clan clearly. When he was leaving the Blood Sun Empire, he wanted to come here and destroy the Tian Yuan clan. Although he knew that the daughter of the Shi Emperor was an elder of the Tian Yuan clan, she had already left. If he wanted to destroy the Tian Yuan clan, there was basically no need for him to be so fearful. He did not have to worry about angering the daughter of the Shi Emperor at all through this. However, what prevented him from acting was that even though the Shi Emperor had left, he left an infinite prime from the Shi Empire in the Tian Yuan clan. This expert's cultivation was far greater than his own, so Huai could only settle down temporarily in the provincial city and take note of the Tian Yuan clan at all times. Once the infinite prime departed, he would be able to destroy the Tian Yuan clan with a single gesture. Even the Divine King would not be able to stop him. Huai's wait had already gone on for several months, yet the infinite prime in the Tian Yuan clan still had not left. Huai felt more and more irritated. I have plenty of time. I'd like to see just how much longer you can stay in the Tian Yuan clan, infinite prime of the Shi Empire, Huai thought as his eyes shone coldly. Time passed by in a flash. Unknowingly, Jian Chen had already been comprehending the laws of the sword for 3 years. There was only some comprehension deposited in the stone tablet or maybe very little at all, and it was incomplete. As a result, even though Jian Chen had not completely understood the mysteries in there during these 3 years, he had understood most of it already. Although the comprehension on the stone tablet is incomplete, I've benefited plenty already. I can break through at any time if I follow the path of the owner of the stone tablet and reach the major achievement of sword spirit. However, the owner of this views the way of the sword as something the universe conjured, so his way of the sword is derived from whatever is conjured. As a result, his way of the sword still pales in comparison to the ways of the world. He's always one step slower. But I think the way of the sword is the ways of the world. It's one of the 3,000 great ways, where the way of the sword already existed when chaos split into yin and yang and the ways of the world created the universe. It's on the same level as the universe, with no difference in between. As a result, I can't follow the way of the sword on the stone tablet. Jian Chen opened his eyes and murmured. However, when he refused to follow the path the stone tablet had laid out, his eyes shone brighter and brighter. I still need to comprehend my own way of the sword. Someone else's path is someone else's in the end, so I can only borrow it. Although I won't be able to break through right now, the stone tablet has still allowed me to realize many things. I can already vaguely see the path to Sword Immortal, so reaching the major achievement of Sword Spirit is only a matter of time. I've already reached a bottleneck now. Cultivating blindly will no longer give me any substantial help. If I want to break through, I need to comprehend the world and the universe, Jian had already made his way out of his cabin as he thought about that. The moment he opened his door, the stone tablet in his hand silently turned to dust. It dispersed with the breeze. After the 3 years of comprehension, whatever had been left on the stone tablet had completely dispersed already. The stone tablet itself crumbled with the wind. Before long, Jian appeared on the deck of the spatial battleship. Outer space stretched as far as the eye could see. Chapter 2009. A sense of danger. Standing on the huge deck of the spatial battleship, Jian stared at the boundless space that was filled with stars. He could not help but gasp before raising his head. He could not help but splay his hands either. This was the first time he had clearly seen the outer space of the Saints' world ever since he had come here. It was also the first time he made such close contact with the boundless universe. Perhaps due to the boundlessness, Jian felt extremely broad-minded at this moment. He felt like he was going to fuse with the universe, and he wanted to hug it. Elder sister, look at what that person is doing. He's standing there in a daze with his arms open, and his eyes are closed as well. So strange. At this moment, a rather young voice rang out. 2 females had just made their way onto the deck of the spatial battleship. One of them only seemed to be about 7 or 8, making her still a child. She looked at Jian curiously with her bright eyes. The other female seemed to be in her 20s. She was beautiful, where her skin was soft and white. She possessed a slender figure. Although she was not exactly devastatingly beautiful, she was still extremely pretty. The older female immediately covered the girl's mouth. She lectured sternly, "Xiao Man, have you forgotten what I've said? It doesn't matter what weird things or people you see. You can't speak carelessly, or you'll cause trouble for yourself." "Okay, sister." The girl called Xiao Man nodded obediently. She glanced at Jian timidly before immediately walking far away. Jian opened his eyes and looked at the girl who made her way away. His gaze became gloomy, and he felt rather lonely. The purity and naivety of the girl made him remember Xiaoling. "I won't be able to return to the Cloud Plain soon. I hope Xiaoling is safe in the Tian Yuan clan," Jian sighed to himself. He looked around the deck of the ship before sitting down in a quiet region. He cast down a simple formation around him before continuing his comprehension. He hoped to comprehend something from the stars and thus overcome his bottleneck so that he could reach the major achievement of sword spirit. The deck was extremely large and quite a few people had already gathered there. They either formed small groups who drank and spoke together, or they were like Jian, comprehending the mysteries of the stars while simple formations surrounded them. The formation around Jian cut off all the sounds from the outside. He said he was comprehending, but really, he raised his head to look at the boundless cosmos. He looked at the countless stars above his head, and the countless stars and meteors around him that had been reduced to streaks of light from the speed of the battleship. His gaze gradually became glazed. At that moment, he felt like he had fused with the cosmos such that they were one. Of course, this was just a feeling. He was nowhere close to actually fusing with the universe yet. However, Jian could clearly sense the laws of the sword interwoven into the surroundings. It was like a sequence in the surroundings, just like a vein of the universe. It mingled with the other laws, forming a great, boundless net that created the boundless universe. Although the ways of the world are divided by power, they can all become universal existences if comprehended to the limit. They can control the order of the universe. The 3,000 ways are the 3,000 laws. Every single law takes part in composing the veins of the universe, the backbone that supports the world. They have their unique purposes and cannot be replaced. Jian silently gained this enlightenment. He seemed to grasp and understand something, but when he tried to comprehend it closely, he discovered it was nothing. Jian did not notice at all that when he comprehended the world, the laws of the sword were not the only thing he sensed due to being in this state. He could clearly sense the existence of the other laws that formed the world. Such a matter was unimaginable. As all people knew, cultivators needed to comprehend the laws of the world to reach godhood. That was how they got past the gate to godhood. However, to control the laws of the world meant that their existence needed to be sensed. They had to see the laws first before slowly grasping them. If even seeing was impossible, then grasping was naturally impossible as well. Many Origin Realm cultivators were unable to reach godhood in their lifetimes because they were unable to see the laws of the world. As a result, they could not grasp them. Some cultivators could grasp 2, 3, or even more laws at the same time. This was because they could sense their existence. However, not only could Jianchen sense the way of the sword he was most proficient in, but he could sense all the other ways as well. However, Jianchen suddenly felt a chill run down his spine at this moment. The chill had arisen spontaneously, forcing him out of that state. Jianchen opened his eyes and stared at the space. He was extremely stern. The sudden chill made him sense danger. It was like a great disaster was going to happen. Jianchen, why are you here? I've been looking for you everywhere. When Jianchen removed his formation, Kaiya's voice suddenly rang out. She had just arrived on the deck and quickly made her way towards Jianchen. Behind her was the white-robed Master Chanlong. Jianchen looked at Kaiya and saw her frantic expression. He could not help but ask out of curiosity, Kaiya, what has happened? Why are you looking for me in such a hurry? Kaiya arrived before Jianchen. She became slightly lost from Jianchen's question and said, I suddenly felt slightly uneasy, so I immediately wanted to find you and Master Chanlong despite being in seclusion. I found Master Chanlong, but your room was empty. Chanlong and I have basically searched through the entire battleship to find you. Jianchen became sterner and sterner from that. He could not help but think about the spontaneous chill he experienced earlier from how Kaiya suddenly felt uneasy. Haha. Brother Jianchen, what a coincidence. You're actually here too. At this moment, a somewhat familiar voice rang out. Jianchen followed the voice and looked over. He saw Qi Xiang, who he had met at the convention, make his way over with a smile. It's brother Qi Xiang. Jianchen clasped his fist. Qi Xiang looked at the stars and meteors that had been reduced to streaks of light in the surroundings and smiled. The stars are like a torrential rain of light. It's such a beautiful scene. It's only present on spatial battleships that are even faster than infinite primes. If we don't properly appreciate such a beautiful scene, it'll be a great regret of life. Brother Jianchen, why don't we drink while we admire this? I hope you'd give me the honor. Chapter 2010. The Three-Eyed Demon King. The sudden chill Jianchen had experienced while he had been comprehending and Kaiya's sudden sense of unease made him feel an ill omen. He was in no mood to drink with Qi Xiang, but just when he wanted to turn him down, a noisy clamor rang out. An apology? Ha 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 ha, you've run into this king, and you want to make it up by apologizing? Are you two looking down on me? Would I still have any dignity left if I just let this slide? Sorry, Senior. It's my younger sister's fault. I hope Senior can take my younger sister's age into account and be the bigger person and forgive my younger sister's disrespect earlier. Jianchen could not help but gaze over at where the clamor had started. The two females he had met on the deck of the battleship were currently talking to a burly man with a third eye that grew vertically on his forehead. A heavy presence wrapped around the burly man as he gave off a heavy pressure. His gaze was vicious as he glared at the two females viciously. The older lady among them was slightly flustered. She apologized to the three-eyed burly man constantly. As for the young girl, she understood that she had accidentally caused trouble again. Her face paled in fright as she clung onto the hand of the woman next to her. She trembled pitifully. At this moment, the three-eyed man sneered. He suddenly looked at the young girl's chest, and before they could react, he grabbed the pendant around the young girl's neck. He studied it for a while in his hand and said, "Since you've run into me, give me the pendant as your apology. I won't pester you any longer seeing how you're young." As he said that, the burly man had already gripped the pendant tightly. "Ah. My mother gave me that before she passed away. Give it back, give it back. Give it back, please. I beg you, don't take what my mother gave me before she died." Like a cat that someone had stepped on its tail, the little girl leapt up now that her pendant was taken. She forgot about her fear and dread, and she lunged at the burly man angrily. She wanted to take her jade pendant back. However, the young girl had only begun cultivating, so it was impossible for her to approach the man. The thin layer of origin energy around the man forced her back. Senior, the pendant is the only item that Xiao Man's parents left for her. It holds great significance for Xiao Man. Moreover, it's not like the pendant is anything valuable, so I beg Senior to return it to Xiao Man. The lady forced back her anger and said submissively. The eyes of the burly man turned cold from that. When he saw more and more people direct their attention over here, he could not help but have a sliver of killing intent appear in his eyes. He said coldly, "You ran into this king, and this king didn't punish you for the sake of this king's dignity. This king only wanted this pendant that would only be a low-grade saint artifact at most as an excuse to forgive you. Yet not only do the two of you have no idea what's best for you, but you even want more than that. Do you really think I can be provoked? This king will give the two of you a choice right now. Do you want the jade pendant or your lives? Choose." The burly man definitely would not return the jade pendant. His third eye possessed a special ability that allowed him to see the reality of many things. The jade pendant seemed simple, but he discovered that it was extraordinary through his third eye. He had decided that the jade pendant would definitely be a treasure. In order to scare the people who paid attention to prevent anyone from interfering, the man let out a powerful presence when he reached there. He was a mid-god king. The young girl was blown away like a broken kite from the eruption of the presence. She could not resist at all. If it were not for the fact that fighting was forbidden on the spatial battleship apart from the arena of life and death, which made the burly man fearful, he could have used his presence alone to crush the girl who only seemed to be at the mortal realm. The older lady was only a late over-god. Under the presence of a mid-god king, she struggled to protect herself, so she had no effort to spare to protect the girl. Just when the girl was about to hit the ground, Jianshan immediately took a step forward as he watched on from a distance. He crossed several hundred meters like he had teleported and directly arrived behind the girl. He caught her gently. Jianshan placed her on the ground softly and asked in a voice filled with concern, "Little sister, are you all right?" The girl's eyes were red and tears pooled up. She seemed pitiful, and she said, "I'm fine. Thank you for saving me, big brother." The little girl looked at the burly man, and her innocent eyes were filled with helplessness. It was a heartbreaking sight. She sobbed, "That's the old thing my mother left me before she passed away. Don't worry, big brother will get it back for you." Jianshan comforted the young girl before looking at the three-eyed man. He said, "Sir, you're a might god king, yet you're openly taking a little girl's things. That doesn't suit your identity at all. Why don't you return the pendant?" Even though the three-eyed demon king had already reached mid-god king, Jianshan felt no fear at all. In the 3 years of comprehension, his strength had increased significantly even though he had not reached the major achievement of sword spirit. Moreover, he had grasped the power of the ancient Skywolf's bloodline. Jianshan only knew that the howl emitted from the power of the bloodline possessed extremely surprising might, but even he himself did not know just how great it was. As a result, he wanted to find a mid-god king to test his current strength. Jianshan sticking his nose into the matter seemed to trigger the burly man. A terrifying presence radiated from him as he glared coldly at Jianshan with killing intent. "Kid, who are you? Are you sick of living for getting in the way of my matters?" He seems to be that Jianshan who killed the captain of the Swords Wolf adventurers as a late over-god in the arena of life and death. That really is Jianshan. It has been 3 years. I never thought he'd actually appear on the deck. Many people recognized Jianshan in the surroundings and cried out his name. "So you're that Jianshan? I don't care who you are. Even if you rank first on the Overgod's plaque, this king won't let you have it easy if you stick your nose into my matters. If you're smart, leave immediately. I can forgive you for your rudeness earlier," said the three-eyed demon king. You sure talk big. I would like to see just what ability you have as the so-called three-eyed demon king," a sneer rang out. Qi Xiang made his way over from nearby, and a god king basically followed him closely the entire time. "And who are you?" The three-eyed demon king's face sank. Killing intent shone coldly in his eyes. However, when he saw the god king beside Qi Xiang, he could not help but become stern. I'm Qi Xiang. The three-eyed demon king's face immediately changed. He said in surprise, Qi Xiang? Are you from the Qi family of the Blood Sun Empire from the southern region of the Cloud Plain? That's right, replied Qi Xiang. Even though he was only a late over god, he showed no fear at all when he faced the three-eyed demon king who was a mid-god king. After confirming Qi Xiang's identity, the three-eyed demon king's gaze towards him immediately became filled with deep fear. The three-eyed demon king had stayed in the imperial capital of the Blood Sun Empire for a while, so he understood the major sects and clans in the Blood Sun Empire slightly. The Qi family was one of the major clans, and even the imperial family had to show them some respect. To the three-eyed demon king, the descendants of these major clans could never be provoked. Even though he had already left the southern region and the Cloud Plain now, his fear of these major clans remained the same. This was because he understood that once he offended these major clans, they could easily take teleportation formations across plains to kill him even if he had fled the Cloud Plain. Most importantly, a god king followed Qi Xiang. Any young master who a god king protected would definitely hold a significant status. Jianshan slowly made his way towards the three-eyed demon king, and his presence increased. He gave off a powerful battle intent and said, Sir, you better return the item to the girl. Otherwise, it'll probably turn out ugly. We might end up meeting on the arena of life and death. Jian Chen's presence directly crushed down on the three-eyed demon king. He felt a tinge of desire, a desire for a powerful opponent to challenge so that he could test his current strength and the might of the power from the ancient Skywolf's bloodline. The three-eyed demon king was immediately enraged from Jian Chen's naked threats. Killing intent surged in his eyes. Even though he had heard about Jian Chen and knew that he could kill god kings as an over-god, they were only early god kings. There was no need for him to fear. The difference between early and mid-god kings was extremely great. It could be described as heaven and earth. If Jian Chen was an early god king, the three-eyed demon king believed he could challenge those stronger than him, such as late god kings. However, Jian Chen was still an over-god right now. The three-eyed demon king stared at Jian Chen viciously with killing intent. Just when he was about to agree to Jian Chen's challenge to the arena of life and death, Qi Xiang's voice rang out. Brother Jian Chen's matters are my matters as well. Three-eyed demon king, if you don't do what brother Jian Chen wants you to do, I can only try you out in the arena of life and death as well. Qi Xiang's words were like a cold bucket of water poured over the head of the three-eyed demon king. It sent chills running through his body. He did not treat Qi Xiang's strength with any significance, but there were no rules at all in the arena of life and death. He was certain that once Qi Xiang really entered the arena, the expert from the Qi family would follow him in as well. I won't look any further into this matter for the sake of young Master Qi. The three-eyed demon king understood it was no longer possible for him to keep the jade pendant. He glared at Jian Chen before tossing the jade pendant back to the girl reluctantly. He left with a sunken face. The girl was especially overjoyed when she regained the pendant. She clutched it in her hand tightly as she thanked Jian Chen gratefully. The older lady walked over as well. She clasped her fist at Jian Chen and said gratefully, I am Zi Yun. This is my younger sister, Xiao Man. Thank you for retrieving the jade pendant for my sister. Boom! Just when Jian Chen was about to respond, a deafening sound suddenly rang out. The entire spatial battleship shook violently, and it seemed to come to a halt along with the great sound. The inertia caused all the people on the deck to lurch forwards uncontrollably. Even God Kings struggled to gain their footing under such speeds. Bang! 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 Immediately, a series of collisions rang out. All the people on the deck smacked into the railing or directly onto the barrier around the ship at that moment. Many people vomited blood. The collision was just too powerful. Even overgods could not avoid being injured. There were even many people below over God who directly had their souls dispersed. Jianchen, Kaya, and Master Chanlong were unable to avoid this either. They slammed towards the railing of the ship with lightning speed. At this critical moment, Master Chanlong directly used his azure disc to protect himself, while the laws of destruction permeated Kaya's surroundings. As for Jianchen, he filled every inch of his body with chaotic force in that split second, unleashing the defenses of the chaotic body. However, even with that being the case, Jianchen still ended up seeing stars after the collision. He felt like the world was spinning around him. The collision was simply too strong. With how the battleship had suddenly stopped at such a great speed, the inertia was imaginable. They all lurched forwards faster than comets. The deck became filled with the heavy smell of blood. Many people died on the spot with their bodies torn to pieces. Blood dyed the deck red. Jianchen recovered very quickly. When he gained his bearings again and found that Kaya and Master Chanlong were fine, only shaken up slightly just like himself, he could not help but feel relieved. He looked around and discovered that some god kings had also crawled to their feet in horrible shapes. Many overgods suffered varying of different degrees. Qi Xiang had a defensive supreme quality saint artifact, so he was fine. Ziyun was also unscathed. She had hugged her younger sister as soon as the sudden halt had happened, so Xiao Man did not suffer any wounds either. She had only fallen unconscious from the impact. What happened? What is happening? Has something happened to the spatial battleship? A disturbance immediately erupted as more and more people recovered. However, in the next moment, 3 extremely terrifying presences radiated from the spatial battleship. It passed through the protective barriers and directly permeated the surrounding space, causing it to ripple like water. 3 old men silently appeared above the deck. They looked up as they were extremely grim. The 3 old men were the 3 elders Jianchen had met at the top of the spatial battleship. Space beasts are attacking. Everyone be on guard. Hong Mo, who stood in the center, growled. His voice was old but filled with energy, directly passing through the formations of the spatial battleship and resounding across every nook and cranny. Space beasts. Jianchen was stunned, and he suddenly looked up. With that, his eyes suddenly narrowed. An extremely great shadow hovered above the spatial battleship. It was like a tremendous dark cloud that crushed down, obscuring the radiance of the suns and stars. As it was black by itself and extremely close to the color of space, it was difficult to discover its existence without looking carefully. What kind of space beast is this? It's huge. Jianchen was deeply shocked. The spatial battleship was several dozen kilometers long. It was already enormous in his eyes, yet when it was compared to the space beast that hovered above, it was like an ant to an elephant. The space beast was truly the size of a planet. At the same time, the gray-haired old woman slowly opened her eyes in a high-class cabin. An evident sliver of exhaustion was in her eyes as she sighed gently. I never thought a Nebula Beast Emperor would appear here. I can't stay on this spatial battleship any longer. Sigh. I've fled for so many years already. I just wonder whether I can escape this. The old woman slowly put the damaged armor placed beside her away as she said that. She opened the cabin door and walked towards the deck steadily. The deck of the spatial battleship became filled with people very soon. The cultivators who remained in their cabins originally made their way to the deck as quickly as possible, crowding the huge deck to the point where movements were almost impossible. There were many people injured among them. Clearly, the sudden halt of the spatial battleship had made of them collide against the battleship even when they were in their cabins. At this moment, even though the ship deck was packed, it was deathly silent. Everyone looked up at the huge, planet-like space beast that hovered above the spatial battleship. They were deeply stunned. Jianchen became extremely grim as he stared at the space beast. His heart had sunken completely. Although he was unable to detect the exact strength of the space beast due to the protective formations around the spatial battleship, he still felt like a single breath from it was enough to blow them away. It's actually a Nebula Beast Emperor. We're in deep trouble now. Among the three elders of the spatial battleship, Muhi growled. Hong Mo's face also sank. Immediately, he passed down orders: activate all the defensive formations. Pour all the energy for the killing formations into the movement formations. Use the divine crystal reserves on the spatial battleship and pour them all into the movement formations. Use the greatest speed the battleship can achieve to charge through. Yes, sir. With that, a disciplinary god king below replied politely and immediately entered the hold of the ship. In just a few seconds, a tremendous energy pulse was emitted from the spatial battleship. The ship had activated all its defensive formations, pushing its defenses to the limit. The defensive formations on the spatial battleship were extremely powerful. Let alone infinite primes, even chaotic primes would require several strikes to get through them. Although its defenses were strengthened, the spatial battleship expended its energy extremely quickly as well. As soon as the defenses were pushed to the maximum, the movement formations of the battleship were activated as well and pushed to the limit. Immediately, a great acceleration caused many people on the deck to stumble, and the spatial battleship had already rushed off as a streak of light. Activate the energy drawing formation. Everyone on the battleship, immediately pour your origin energy into the deck. Whether we can escape or not will depend on that, Hong Mo's voice rang out again. This time, he was clearly speaking to everyone on the battleship. With that, a huge formation immediately appeared below everyone's feet on the deck. This was the energy drawing formation on the spatial battleship. It could direct all the energy it received into any formation. Everyone knew that they faced a crisis right now. At this moment where their lives were threatened, none of them hesitated. They all poured their origin energy into the formation without holding back at all. All the origin energy was directed into the movement formation of the battleship. With this, the battleship's speed suddenly exploded. At that moment, it widened the distance between the space beasts drastically. Immediately, this sight made many people feel relieved. They felt fortunate. However, their faces froze very soon. They stared above in a daze. The spatial battleship had already unleashed its full speed, and it was much faster than before. However, the space beast moved even faster. In less than 2 seconds, it caught up from behind. It appeared above the battleship with its dark body, and a huge talon as large as a mountain suddenly fell down. It ripped through space and struck the spatial battleship with tremendous, terrifying pressure. With a great boom, the spatial battleship was like a leaf, swept far away by the Nebula Beast Emperor's talon. All the people on the deck collided with each other in horrible shapes. Even God Kings struggled to stabilize themselves. In the blink of an eye, only 2 people remained standing on the entire deck aside from the 3 elders. One of them was the old woman who had appeared in the convention, while the other was a young man in embroidered robes. However, the 2 of them were extremely grim. The Nebula Beast Emperor has already reached early chaotic prime. It's impossible to escape using the battleship, the old woman said. Her feeble voice possessed a tinge of exhaustion. When the old woman spoke, the spatial battleship shook violently once again. The formation on the very outside had shattered, destroyed by the Nebula Beast Emperor. Although there were countless defensive formations on the spatial battleship, these formations interwove and stacked upon one another, forming 3 powerful formations in the end. One of the 3 formations had been shattered. Only 2 remained. The young man in embroidered robes was extremely grim. He stared at the Nebula Beast Emperor and growled, "The defensive formations on the spatial battleship can't last for long against chaotic primes. Elders, please open the formations so that we can flee." The young man was also a primordial realm expert. "Hong Mo, what do we do?" The 2 other elders looked at Hong Mo. Hong Mo's gaze gradually sharpened as a powerful battle intent rose up from his body. He said, "Although the Nebula Beast Emperor has reached chaotic prime, it only seems to have broken through recently from its presence. I'll go try it out. If I can keep it busy, immediately leave here with the spatial battleship." "Hong Mo, that's too dangerous," the 2 elders wanted to persuade him, but Hong Mo had already vanished. In the next moment, powerful primordial realm laws descended. The entire space shook heavily as powerful pulses of spatial energy radiated outwards. Clearly, Hong Mo had already engaged the Nebula Star King in battle. Just when the two remaining elders were about to pass down orders for the battleship to leave, it suddenly shook. The Nebula Beast Emperor suddenly extended its mountainous talon and swung it at the ship. Crack! The second defensive formation on the spatial battleship had shattered as well. Oh no! The faces of two elders on the spatial battleship twisted horribly. The Nebula Beast Emperor is far too powerful. It's impossible to escape. Give me healing pills. Once I recover a little, I'll fend off the Nebula Beast Emperor with you. Maybe there's a chance to survive, said the old woman. Here. At this moment, the two elders no longer cared about the value of the healing pills. They each produced a god-tier healing pill and passed it to the old woman. The old woman inspected the two pills quickly before consuming them as quickly as possible. It was also at this moment that the Nebula Beast Emperor's 5 talons fell simultaneously, striking the last defensive formation with terrifying force. The strike from the Nebula Beast Emperor was extremely powerful. The final protective barrier immediately shattered. Without the protection of the formations, it was impossible for the spatial battleship to endure the powerful attacks of the Nebula Beast Emperor through its toughness alone. Cracks covered the entire vehicle. Although there were powerful killing formations on the spatial battleship, they were unable to form any kind of threat to the Nebula Beast Emperor. Go! Once the formation had shattered, Jian called out. He pulled Kaya and Master Chanlong with him, flying towards outer space like a loose arrow. In Jian eyes, the powerful spatial battleship was clearly done for. If he remained here any longer, it would only make them a greater target, which would increase the danger. At the moment Jian left the spatial battleship, the people gathered on the deck clearly understood the current situation as well. They all charged off in various directions. Many people even paid a great price to use various escape techniques, damaging their vitality to escape as quickly as possible. Jian used the senses of his soul to sweep past the crowd. He found the girl called Xiao Man. She was still unconscious and in her sister Ziyun's arms. The girl made Jian think of Xiaoling. He seemed to see Xiaoling's shadow on her, so he was reluctant to see Xiao Man just die there. However, just when Jian wanted to save the two of them, he saw a simple talisman suddenly appear in Ziyun's hand. She formed a seal, and the talisman immediately released a powerful energy that surrounded Ziyun and Xiao Man. Terrifying powers of space revolved around the two of them. A cosmic movement talisman. Hong Mo, who was fighting against the Nebula Beast Emperor, sensed this power and immediately cried out. The eyes of the two other elders, the old woman, and the young man in embroidered robes narrowed at this moment. Cosmic movement talismans were extremely valuable. They could transport people an extremely vast distance, enough to move between planes. It was a supreme treasure for escaping, where even they did not possess any. The young man in embroidered robes immediately beamed. He arrived before Ziyun with a single step, and he reached out with his hand towards Ziyun. It seemed to trap the entire region. However, he was still slow. The frozen space did not affect the power of space from the movement talisman. With a white flash, Ziyun had already vanished from the spatial battleship with Xiao Man. Jian was stunned when he personally watched this unfold. He stared deeply at where Ziyun stood before turning around and charging into the endless outer space. He fled with Chanlong and Kaya. At this moment, a great roar rang out behind. It shook up the surroundings as the terrifying sound caused space to tremble visibly. Along with the beast's roar, countless presences appeared in outer space. They dispersed like a flood. Jian, Kaya, and Chanlong, who were fleeing for their lives, glanced backward subconsciously. Their eyes immediately narrowed after they did that as their faces changed drastically. They could see the complete appearance of the Nebula Beast Emperor that had attacked the spatial battleship at such a close distance. It was the size of a planet and ink black. It seemed like a lizard, except it had 8 legs. It was currently battling the 5 primordial realm experts from the spatial battleship. However, countless nebula beasts rode on its vast back. At this moment, they were flying down from the back. This eyes glowed red as they chased the cultivators who had fled in all directions. There were extremely many of them, no less than 1,000,000. They stretched as far as the eye could see and were innumerable. They were densely packed like locusts. Run! Many people paled when they faced the pursuit of so many nebula beasts. They cried out in a panic as they fled crazily. Even Jianchen, Kaya, and Chanlong fled as quickly as they could. However, the nebula beasts were beasts of space and thrived in this environment, so they were like fish in water. Both their speeds and battle prowess were greater than regular cultivators. Moreover, there were many God King level existences among them. As a result, in just a few seconds, many cultivators were stopped by the nebula beasts and slaughtered. Blood filled outer space. Even Jianchen, Chanlong, and Kaya had been caught up to by 4 God King nebula beasts. Now that their path was blocked, an intense battle erupted. Afterwards, they were surrounded by even more nebula beasts that had gathered over. Daluo sword. Tai sword technique. Jianchen's presence surged as he struck out as hard as he could. He kept 2 God King nebula beasts busy himself and forced them back with his sword techniques. Afterwards, he sent a 3-meter-long sword chi at the nebula beasts around him. Spurt. 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 Wherever the sword chi passed by, the nebula beasts were either pierced or cleaved in half. Just a single strand of sword chi claimed the lives of over a dozen nebula beasts. Overgod nebula beasts amounted to several of them. Kaya also struck out without holding back at all. The laws of destruction and fire revolved around her as her presence surged as well. She kept the 2 other God Kings busy, doing her best to break free from the encirclement. Although Jianchen's strength had increased after the 3 years of comprehension, Kaya was still no weaker than him. Master Chanlong equipped a high-quality Saint artifact armor as his azure disc expanded to a size of 10 meters, hovering above his head. Lines of complicated and profound inscriptions flickered as his hands constantly changed between seals. He threw out formation banners one after another, casting down formations as quickly as possible. A huge python created from formation banners protected his side. Under the control of the soul trapped in there, it furiously slaughtered the nebula beasts in the surroundings. Old man, hurry up. There are more and more of them, the trapped soul roared out. Even though it also possessed the strength of a late overgod through the python created from the formation banners, it also struggled to fend off so many nebula beasts. After all, there were many overgods among the nebula beasts and even late overgods. If it were not for the fact that the python was extraordinarily tough, it probably would not have been able to last until now. The spatial battleship had already been destroyed, reduced to countless fragments scattered across space. The cultivators who had fled from the battleship died one after another such that the region became covered with corpses. Boom! Nearby, a heavy sound rang out. A fleeing God King became heavily injured against 3 nebula beasts of similar strength. They forced him to self-destruct. As a result, a terrifying energy rippled through space and created a crack. The 3 God King nebula beasts were blasted away in bloodied shapes as well. A God King had died soon after the battle had begun. Jianchen was extremely stern. He discovered that even though he and Kaya kept the 4 early God King nebula beasts busy and had slaughtered a large number of other beasts, the beasts around them did not decrease at all. Instead, they increased in number. Jianchen's eyes turned cold. He looked at the 2 early God King nebula beasts, and in the next moment, a surging sword intent radiated from his body. 2 finger-sized strands of profound sword chi hovered above his head and turned into 2 streaks of white light, shooting towards the 2 early God King nebula beasts even faster than lightning. The 2 strands of profound sword chi moved extremely quickly. It overcame the distance and arrived before the foreheads of the 2 nebula beasts in the instant it was shot out. Spurt. Spurt. The 2 early God King nebula beasts were unable to react at all as the 2 strands of sword chi punched through their huge heads. Immediately, their powerful presences rapidly declined, and their vicious eyes became hollow. All signs of life had vanished from their bodies. After sending out the 2 strands of sword qi, the power of Jian Chen's soul decreased by half. Fortunately, his soul had reached the level of God Kings, so it was quite a lot more powerful than before. Shooting out 2 strands of profound sword qi was unable to drain all the power of his soul anymore. Looking at the 2 dead nebula beasts, Jian Chen's eyes lit up. He discovered that after his soul had reached the level of God Kings, the might of his profound sword qi had increased by quite a lot as well. Otherwise, if he had sent out 2 strands of profound sword qi that were on the same level of power as before, it would only drain a third of the power of his soul. However, he ended up consuming half of it. The remaining portion had gone to strengthen the profound sword qi. Jian Chen did not stop. He used sword qi to cut the heads of the nebula beasts to pieces and removed 2 fist-sized energy crystals from them. At the same time, he formed a seal with his right hand and used the Daluo sword against a God King nebula beast Kaya was fighting. The nebula beast was locked in an intense battle against Kaya with the other nebula beast of similar strength. Its tremendous body was covered in wounds, with many places burnt by the laws of fire and pulsing with the laws of destruction. Clearly, it was heavily injured. With Jian Chen's entry, the nebula beast became even less of an opponent. With a flash of golden light, the sword qi sliced its head off effortlessly. At the same time, Kaya's hand struck the 4th God King nebula beast's head. Her slender, white hand possessed unbelievable power. The laws of destruction surged, directly reducing the head to pieces. In the blink of an eye, Jian Chen and Kaya had killed off all 4 of the God King nebula beasts. Jian Chen and Kaya collected an energy crystal each. Without hesitating, they called Master Chanlong and immediately charged outwards. Jian Chen and Kaya did not hold back at all. The laws of destruction, laws of fire, and laws of the sword mingled in the surroundings, mercilessly killing the nebula beasts that were over-gods at most and deities at the very least. With their battle prowess that matched God Kings, slaughtering the nebula beasts was naturally effortless. Corpses of nebula beasts formed whole flocks wherever they went while blood had already filled the surroundings. However, Jian Chen, Kaya, and Chanlong did not relax at all. Instead, they became grimmer. This was because they had all noticed that a large number of nebula beasts had already surrounded them. They formed a huge sphere around them, locking them in as they attacked them from all directions. No matter how many nebula beasts they ended up slaughtering, they remained trapped in the sphere, unable to break free. As time went on and cultivators from the spatial battleship died constantly, more and more nebula beasts were freed up, which all charged over to fight the remaining cultivators. As a result, even though the 3 of them had already slaughtered many nebula beasts of various strength, the encirclement did not weaken at all. Instead, the number of beasts increased. Jian Chen did not even have the time to collect the energy crystals of the over-god nebula beasts they had slaughtered. All he could do was watch them float in outer space quietly. Suddenly, a few tremendous roars rang out from the distance. 7 enormous nebula beasts charged towards Jian Chen's group. Even though they were injured to varying degrees, their presences were extremely powerful. Surrounded, the expressions of the 3 of them changed. The 7 nebula beasts were all God Kings, and 2 of them were mid-God Kings. Before they could think too much about it, the 7 God King nebula beasts had already arrived with lightning speed. They attacked Jian Chen without any hesitation. 2 of the early God King nebula beasts looked at Master Chanlong, and the pressure they gave off made his body sink suddenly. Master Chanlong was extremely grim. He was a formations master. If he had cast down his most powerful formations, he was confident about killing these 2 early God King nebula beasts. However, he faced the disruption of the many other nebula beasts around him right now. He did not have the time to cast down formations that could kill God Kings. Jian Chen and Kaya's hearts sank as well. With so many God King nebula beasts and 2 at mid-God King, they felt extremely pressured. Moreover, they had clearly sensed that if they continued to waste time like this, more God King nebula beasts would hurry over. Suddenly, a gleam of light flashed through Kaya's eyes. In the next moment, her presence changed, and she raised both of her hands. The laws of destruction gathered in her right hand as the laws of fire transformed into dazzling flames in her left. Between her hands, 3 inches above her head, the power from the laws of creation gathered. At that moment, the laws of creation, destruction, and fire had all gathered around Kaya. As soon as the 3 laws appeared, they seemed to create a bridge connected to the universe, making Kaya give off a sliver of the universe's presence. It was profound. However, ordinary people could not sense this presence. Only the powerful existences who had deeply comprehended the mysteries of the world could sense it. As a result, even Jian Chen was unable to sense it as he stood beside Kaya. Suddenly, Kaya extended both of her hands. With that, the laws of destruction, fire, and creation all surged out, striking one of the mid-God King Nebula beasts with the presence of the universe. Her simple-looking gesture contained unbelievable power. The mid-God King's tremendous body actually silently disintegrated from it. Let alone its body, but even its energy crystal did not remain, turning directly into nothingness. Kaya shuddered heavily after the strike, and her face rapidly paled. Aro. At basically the same time as when Kaya sent out her terrifying attack, Jian Chen unleashed a howl. It sounded exactly like a wolf's howl. With the howl, the power of the ancient skywolf's bloodline in Jian Chen's body was completely drained. A visible sound wave with a terrifying might that even the countless nebula beasts in the region feared expanded in all directions. Wherever the sound wave passed by, countless nebula beasts let out painful shrieks. The nebula beasts below God King all bled from their facial orifices before ceasing all movement. All signs of life drained from their bodies at that moment. They were reduced to corpses. In the blink of an eye, Jian Chen's howl shook the countless nebula beasts around the trio to death. Even the early God King nebula beasts stopped attacking the 3 of them and let out painful shrieks. Only the mid-God King nebula beast was left dazed and confused. It had become temporarily stunned. Just a single howl had claimed the lives of tens of thousand nebula beasts. This sight stunned Jian Chen as well. In the distance, the primordial realm experts who battled the Nebula Beast Emperor paused as well. Their eyes widened as they suddenly looked in Jian Chen's direction. Chapter 2015, swept into a crack. The Nebula Beast Emperor was a space beast that had recently reached chaotic prime. An existence like Jian Chen was like an ant in its eyes, but the howl Jian Chen had just emitted made the Nebula Beast Emperor feel some angst. The howl made it notice Jian Chen almost immediately. A 10-meter-long strand of sword chi surged from Jian Chen's arm as he swung it around with resplendent light. He mercilessly killed the nebula beasts who were stunned. Spurt. 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 Immediately, blood spurted in the surroundings. Even though the nebula beasts were god kings, their minds were in a mess after the howl struck them. They could not resist at all, allowing Jian Chen to cut open their heads easily. In the blink of an eye, Jian Chen had already killed 5 of the 6 God King level nebula beasts. Jian Chen did not have the time to collect the 5 God King level energy crystals. His gaze was cold as the sword chi gathered on his arm strengthened. It shone like the sun as he swung it towards the last, mid-God King nebula beast. The howl from Jian Chen's power of the ancient Skywolf's bloodline had shaken all the nebula beasts that had surrounded Jian Chen, Kaya, and Master Chanlong to death. The mid-God King nebula beast was the last one left that blocked his way. Once it was dead, Jian Chen was confident that he could escape. Even if the other nebula beasts wanted to pursue him, they would not be able to catch up. However, just when Jian Chen was about to kill the last nebula beast, an icy-cold presence suddenly descended. Jian Chen felt like he had entered a cavern of ice as his limbs became frozen. The sword chi that fell towards the last nebula beast was forcefully halted as well. Jian Chen's heart suddenly sank. A chill ran down his spine as he immediately felt his body turn cold. He could clearly sense that an unimaginably terrifying presence had locked onto him. Under the presence, not only was he immobilized, but even his blood seemed to freeze. His chaotic force moved sluggishly. Jian Chen felt like the world was ending at that moment. Jian looked back with great difficulty and saw that the enormous eyes of the Nebula Beast Emperor that fought against the 5 Primordial Realm experts had already locked onto him. Even though it was fighting against 5 Primordial Realm experts and distracted, it still had effort to spare. It suppressed the 5 Primordial Realm experts firmly. If it were not for Hong Imo, a peak infinite prime, who served as the main distraction, the other Primordial Realm experts would have probably died already. Kaya and Chanlong paled as well. They were with Jian, so when the Nebula Beast Emperor locked onto Jian, they also experienced an overwhelming pressure that caused their hearts to turn cold. In the next moment, a terrifying pressure suddenly appeared. Space shook violently as the huge tail of the Nebula Beast Emperor swept towards the 3 of them with devastating power. The tail was extremely thick. It directly engulfed the entire region, and as it fell, its terrifying power caused space to rip, forming a huge spatial crack. Before the tail had even gotten close, the 3 of them already felt like they were suffocating. Master Chanlong's skin even cracked, where blood directly spurted out. Before the tail had even arrived, the terrifying pressure it had produced was enough to crush God Kings to pieces. Boom! At the same time, Hong Mo's presence surged. While the Nebula Beast Emperor was distracted, he used his spatial technique to strike out as hard as he could, causing the tremendous body of the Spatial Beast King to tremor violently. It had been forcefully moved by over 10 meters. At the same time, a huge wound had appeared on its body from Hong Mo's strike. The tail that fell towards Jian, Kaya, and Master Chanlong ended up skewing due to the Nebula Beast Emperor shifting itself. It swept past the 3 of them with terrifying power. Immediately, all the stars in their eyes vanished. A spatial crack appeared from the huge tail, where the endless spatial storms and streams wreaking havoc inside could be clearly seen. At the same time, the terrifying pulses of energy from the battle between the Primordial Realm experts and the Nebula Beast Emperor arrived. Jian, Kaya, and Master Chanlong were swept into the spatial crack helplessly. Jian's face changed suddenly once he entered the crack. The spatial cracks of the Saints' world were not like the ones in the Tianyuan continent. Even Primordial Realm experts would struggle to protect themselves once they fell in. Immediately, the 3 of them hurried off in the opposite direction as quickly as they could. However, space was very unstable within the spatial crack, so even when they unleashed their full speeds, even if Jian used the linear lightning release, they were unable to escape. Instead, they were rapidly swept into the depths of the spatial crack from the chaotic streams of energy. In the blink of an eye, the 3 of them were completely lost in the spatial crack, unable to find a way out. We're in trouble now. We've actually fallen into a spatial crack, Master Chanlong growled. He knew about the terror of spatial cracks far better than Jian and Kaya. Jian and Kaya became extremely grim as well. They looked around, and all they found was chaos. Whether it was time, space, or the laws of the world, it had all fallen into a distorted mess around them. In the distance, they could even clearly see the chaotic time form unstable temporal vortexes in the distorted spacetime, drifting about the powerful streams of space. Suddenly, Jian's eyes narrowed. In the distance, he saw someone familiar. The 3-eyed Demon King had also fallen into a spatial crack. He currently dodged the spatial streams that bombarded him from all directions. He was covered in blood. Suddenly, a chaotic stream of energy struck his body, knocking him far away such that he just happened to fall into an unstable temporal vortex. He rapidly aged in the temporal vortex. In less than a single second, the middle-aged him teeming with life was reduced to a gray-haired old man. In the next second, all his teeming vitality vanished, and he was reduced to a bag of bones. In the 3rd second, the 3-eyed Demon King died from losing all signs of life. He was reduced to white bones, and his soul dispersed. In the 4th second, the white bones of the 3-eyed Demon King seemed to experience the endless flow of time, making them disintegrate. In just 4 short seconds, the 3-eyed Demon King seemed to go through the endless flow of time, where even his corpse as a god king had rotted and been reduced to nothing. This sight frightened Jian. The temporal vortex only seemed to be around 10 meters wide, yet it had destroyed a god king so easily. Chapter 2016, Surviving in the Tower. The fate of the three-eyed demon king made Jianchen fear the temporal vortices. Once caught in one, the individual would still face certain death even if they had reached the peak of godhood. Their tremendous vitality would be completely drained away in just a few seconds. It was rumored that people at godhood would break free from the limits of age and would be able to survive with the world forever. However, Jianchen had roughly understood from all his cultivation that people at godhood could live as long as the world around them because they absorbed and released origin energy when they cultivated. Basically, they were replenishing their vitality at all times. Moreover, their souls had comprehended the laws of the world, making it transform. As a result, godhood experts could claim that they could live on as long as the world. Basically, there were no records in the entire history of the saints' world of a godhood cultivator dying from old age. However, it was impossible to absorb any origin energy at all in the temporal vortex. As the diminishing vitality could not be replenished, the people at godhood would die from losing all their vitality once they had spent enough time in the temporal vortex. Even their souls would not be able to escape that fate. Bang! Suddenly, a sound rang out, and the energy streams that passed by Jianchen were affected by the distorted space, causing them to rebound without any signs. They struck Kaya's back heavily while they were unaware. Kaya vomited a mouthful of blood as she was knocked forwards. Jianchen's face changed as he rushed over as quickly as he could. He only managed to grab Kaya's hand. At the same time, Master Chanlong hurried over immediately as well, grabbing Kaya's other hand. However, without any land or place to push off of within the chaotic spatial crack, Jianchen and Master Chanlong were pulled along by Kaya because she was moving just too quickly. She could not stop at all. Spatial storms, streams of energy, and vortices of time filled the spatial crack. There just happened to be a huge temporal vortex before the three of them, stretching as wide as several dozen meters. The three of them rapidly approached the temporal vortex uncontrollably. They were unable to stop at all. Jianchen's face changed. The temporal vortex that had destroyed the three-eyed demon king was just a few meters wide, yet the temporal vortex before them was several dozen meters wide. Without hesitating at all, Jianchen immediately took out a large pile of medium and low-quality saint artifacts from his space ring, and he tossed them out. He controlled them to explode before him. Master Chanlong also took out some saint artifacts to throw before him. He also made them explode. Boom! 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 With a string of explosions, the force from the saint artifacts exploding finally allowed the trio to stabilize themselves. Without any hesitation, they moved away from the temporal vortex. Even though the three of them were in a messy shape, at least they had managed to avoid falling into the temporal vortex. However, the explosion of so many saint artifacts caused a chain reaction in the spatial crack. It formed even more streams of energy that wreaked havoc in the surroundings as well as terrifying storms of various sizes, causing the entire place to distort with great instability. The expressions of Jianchen, Kaya, and Master Chanlong changed drastically. Many streams of energy and spatial storms had appeared around them, rapidly approaching them. Moreover, the space where they stood distorted as well. Even when they fled as quickly as they could, they discovered that not only was it useless, but they were even being swept towards a huge spatial storm. They felt like they boats moving against the current. No matter how hard they rowed, the boat would not be able to advance forwards at all. Instead, it would be swept backwards by the water. Clearly, this was what they were experiencing right now. The three of them became extremely stern. The spatial storm up ahead was several tens of thousand meters wide. It possessed a frightening power of destruction. Just a single glance at it made them sense death. If they were sucked into the storm, the three of them would definitely die. Quick, enter the tower. At such a critical time, Jianchen decisively took out the Inata Tower, which he had not used for quite some time. The Inata Tower belonged to the Inata Grand Prime after all. It was a famous god artifact of great quality. There were just far too many matters that involved it, so ever since Jianchen came to the Saints' world, he had always been worried that the many powerful people of the Saints' world would discover it once he took it out. As a result, he had always kept it hidden well. After all, he knew that many supreme experts in the saints' world possessed the ability to peer into the past and predict the future. He did not want these supreme experts to find him through the Inata Tower, which would expose his secret of the twin swords. However, now that he faced danger, he was out of options apart from the Inata Tower. As a result, Jian Chen could not care too much about it. Even though the Inata Tower was damaged, Jian Chen was confident that it could hold up against the storm. A sliver of confusion appeared in Kaiya's eyes with the appearance of the Inata Tower. She stared at the unfamiliar, damaged tower in a daze as she experienced a sense of familiarity from the very depths of her soul. Master Chanlong was also stunned. He stared at the damaged tower. This was the first time he had seen it, but he felt like he had seen it in the past before. This feeling was just like when he had met Kaiya for the first time in the provincial city of the Dong'an province. They had clearly just met, yet they felt like they had already known each other for a long time. Before they could think too much about it, Jian Chen had already pulled the two of them into the tower. Boom! When they disappeared from the interior of the spatial crack, the huge spatial storm collided with the Inata Tower heavily, unleashing a deafening sound. However, the Inata Tower stood unmoving. The huge spatial storm several tens of thousand meters across that had made the three of them pale were unable to shake up the Inata Tower at all. Afterwards, streams of energy bombarded the Inata Tower constantly. However, the chaotic streams dispersed by themselves. The Inata Tower did not move at all. Inside, Jian Chen, Kaiya, and Chanlong observed what was happening outside nervously. When they discovered that the chaotic streams of energy and the spatial storms were unable to do anything to the tower, they finally let out a sigh of relief. Jian Chen, what's this place? Kaiya asked as she constantly looked around. The confusion and bewilderment in her eyes became heavier and heavier. Everything about the Inata Tower gave Kaiya an extremely great sense of familiarity, and the feeling was growing stronger. The trapped soul emerged from Master Chanlong's space ring as well. He turned into a huge snake through the formation banners as he constantly studied the miniature world of the first floor. He felt puzzled inside. Where is this place? I haven't been here before, but this feeling is a little familiar, but it also seems so distant. This is a god artifact a paramount expert left behind after their passing. We're currently in the world within the god artifact. There are a total of 9 floors, and each floor is its own world. We're currently in the world of the first floor, said Jian Chen. Then, he looked into the distance and vaguely saw that in an extremely far away place, the surroundings were complete darkness. 4 huge swords hovered there, suppressing everything. It's a pity that all 9 floors were damaged, and they were unable to recover due to the suppression of another paramount expert. As a result, this is only a temporary refuge for us, Jian Chen sighed gently. Chapter 2017, Continued Refinement. I never thought you had obtained such a powerful god artifact. Even though it's damaged, the spatial storms and chaotic streams of energy can't do anything to it at all. It looks like it must be of extremely great quality. Master Chanlong could not help but sigh in amazement. He constantly studied the space within the Inata Tower, never understanding why he found this place slightly familiar. Fantastic. With this god artifact, we won't face any threats when we move through the crack in space at all. Kaiya was excited. Then, she seemed to think of something, and she furrowed her brows slightly. She looked at Jian Chen and asked, Jian Chen, how should we leave this spatial crack? Why don't you try to control the god artifact to attack so that you can create an opening to the outside? Jian Chen became rather stern when he heard that. He said, I've only refined a tiny portion of this god artifact, so I only have the most basic control over it. Let alone making it attack, I can't even move it while we're inside. Jian Chen paused before continuing, right now, we're in a spatial storm. The spatial storm poses no harm to the god artifact, but to us, it's certain death if we end up in it. As a result, we definitely can't leave the god artifact right now. Doesn't that mean we'll be stuck in here for a very long time, all the way until the spatial storm is over? Kaiya asked with a frown. Not necessarily. Jian Chen shook his head. He said, I've only refined the first floor of this god artifact so far, so I can't control its movements. However, I believe that if I deepen my refinement of the god artifact, my control over it will become greater and greater. Let's not tarry. I'll go refine the god artifact right now. Remember, the god artifact is in a spatial storm right now, so you can't leave. In the end, Jianshan warned them sternly before directly making his way to the 9th floor. The center of control over the Inata Tower was a huge stone tablet on the 9th floor. Right now, Jianshan had only refined the portion at the very bottom of it. Jianshan stood on the 9th floor as he stared at the huge stone tablet that stood hundreds of meters tall in the distance. Originally, there was a projection of the heavenly palace of Bisheng where the stone tablet stood before. He saw an extremely pretty statue that could have been the Inata Grand Prime within the heavenly palace of Bisheng, who wanted to give him a legacy. However, after learning from the sword spirits, the voice of the Inata Grand Prime was universal. It contained all the sounds of the world, and it would change as you wished. It was male if you believed it to be so, or female if you believed it to be so. As a matter of fact, if you believed it was a beast's cry, it would be a true beast's cry when heard. However, when Jianshan heard the voice, it was truly female, unlike what the sword spirits had said. At the same time, he saw a gaze that was extremely similar to the artifact spirit of the Inata Tower from the illusionary figure of the Inata Grand Prime. As such, Jianshan doubted the owner of the voice. He believed that the legacy was probably just a scheme the artifact spirit set up. However, although the identity of the owner was suspicious, Jianshan mostly believed what the Inata Grand Prime had gone through during the battle in the past. Jianshan could not help but think about the black bead that contained the laws of destruction back then now that he recalled all this. However, upon understanding that it was a scheme, he stowed the black bead away and never used it, just in case something would happen. Even though he was countless times more powerful than he was in the past, he still did not plan to touch the bead. The teleportation formation in the projection of the heavenly palace of Bisheng took Ming Dong away back then. I wonder how he is right now. Jianshan stared at where the heavenly palace of Bisheng stood before. Although he knew Ming Dong was in the Saints' World right now and that it was extremely likely for him to be in the heavenly palace of Bisheng of the Saints' World, he still did not possess the strength to travel this great distance. The Inata Grand Prime was one of the 7 grand exalts of the Saints' World. He was well renowned. As a result, after spending so much time here, Jianshan learnt that the Inata Grand Prime dwelled on the Xing Plain, which was known as one of the 7 sacred plains of the Saints' World. The Xing Plain was just too distant from the Cloud Plain. It was even more distant than the Ice Pole Plain. If he took a spatial battleship from the Cloud Plain to the Xing Plain, he would need to travel for several thousand years without even stopping at all. It could even take several tens of thousand years. Once I have enough 5-color divine crystals to pay for the fee of using the teleportation formation, I'll go visit the Xing Plain. Also, there's my sister Changyang Mingyue. In the blink of an eye, we've already been separated for almost 200 years. I wonder how she is right now. She's protected by Shui Yunlan though, so there's no need for her to fear any regular people. However, sister is on the same plane as Fairy Hao Yu's moon god Hall. Jianshan thought to himself. He only possessed a blurry understanding of Shui Yunlan's strength back on the Tianyuan continent, but now, he completely understood just how terrifying she was. She ranked 9th on the God King's throne. Such an existence was enough to rival primordial realm experts. It was extremely astonishing even in the Saints' World. After calming himself down, Jian Che dismissed his thoughts and sat down before the stone tablet to continue his refinement. The northern region of the Cloud Plain, within the imperial palace of the Shi Empire. The sword should not just be a weapon in your eyes. Instead, it's your second life. If you want to comprehend the laws of the sword, you must fuse your soul with the sword, to the point where you become one so that you can comprehend the essence of the sword. An armored middle-aged man with a sword in his hand stood in the courtyard outside a residence as he said eloquently. Before the middle-aged man was a beautiful woman, who seemed to be in her 20s. She also held a sword as she paid close attention to the middle-aged man's guidance. At this moment, a beautiful lady in a white dress slowly made her way into the courtyard. Behind her were two pretty female servants. The arrival of the girl in white immediately caused the middle-aged man to become polite. He bowed with respect and said, "Greetings, Your Highness. Sister Xiyu, you're here." The woman who learnt the sword immediately beamed with joy. She planted the sword in the ground and ran over. Care and love appeared in Xiyu's eyes. She asked gently, "Mo Yen, how has learning the sword been going? Have I disturbed you?" "No, not at all. It has already been a few months since I've seen Sister Xiyu. I started to miss you a long time ago." Mo Yen clung onto Xiyu's arm closely as she giggled. The lady who learnt the sword was Mo Yen. The radiant god king of the Shi Empire had saved her long ago. Although Mo Yen was not a part of the Shi Empire, her status was extremely special in the empire due to her relationship with Xiyu. She received the personal care of the Shi Emperor and the Empress. The couple would call to see Mo Yen often so that they could learn of Xiyu's past from her. As a result, Mo Yen became the closest person to the Shi Emperor and the Empress aside from Princess Tian in the entire Shi Empire. It made many princesses and princes in the empire green with envy. This was because many princesses and princes had not even seen the Shi Emperor or the Empress before. Even if they had seen them before, it was only when the couple was out and from a very far distance. They were nowhere close to striking up a conversation. Chapter 2018, Chasing Away Huai. And it went without saying for Xiyu. As the current emperor and empress' only daughter, she was like a treasured pearl in the Shi Empire. She was deeply spoilt by the Shi Emperor and the Empress. Moreover, Xiyu was allowed to use a tremendous amount of cultivation resources, various high-grade cultivation methods and battle skills as well as rare heavenly resources that had been accumulated over countless years as she wished. She did not even have to say anything, and a female servant would politely present precious heavenly resources upon precious heavenly resources to her. Right now, Xiyu could get whatever she wanted in the Shi Empire. No matter what she required, whether it was god-tier heavenly resources of pills, she only needed to mention it, and someone would deliver it very quickly. As for cultivation, she received the personal guidance of an infinite prime who had comprehended the laws of the sword. The infinite prime basically passed on everything he knew without holding back at all. Moreover, even the Empress would personally guide Xiyu often, and the Shi Emperor would frequently come as well, teaching her everything he knew about cultivation without holding back either. Xiyu's talent was already extremely great. Back in the Mo clan, despite their horrible circumstances, she was still able to become a god in an extremely short amount of time. With the guidance of a great master and endless cultivation resources, Xiyu's progress with cultivation in the Shi Empire was basically divine. Xiyu's feelings of repulsion and unforgiveness towards the Shi Emperor and the Empress gradually changed as well. In particular, when she learned that her parents had been forced into desperate straits, fleeing across the entire cloud plain where they could die at any time, and had only abandoned her with great reluctance to protect her, she began to forgive her parents. Coupled with the years she had spent in the Shi Empire, the meticulous care and concern from her parents had truly made her accept them. She had accepted her current identity now. Of course, there was another reason that only Xiyu knew behind all this. Once she became the princess of the Shi Empire, she would be able to help Jian Qin. Mo Yen, you've finally broken through from Saint Emperor and entered the Origin Realm. It looks like you've been working quite hard on cultivation lately. Xiyu studied Mo Yen and smiled gently. Mo Yen's smile immediately vanished from that. She became stern. She balled her fists and gritted her teeth. Ever since I was revived, I swore that I would work hard on cultivation. I want to become an expert who stands on the apex of the saints' world because only with powerful strength will I prevent others from harassing me. Sister Mo Yen, you must remember your oath and work hard on cultivation. I will help you with everything you need, Xiyu said happily. In the past, Mo Yen never focused on cultivation, which pained her greatly. Now, after surviving a disaster, Mo Yen had begun to mature. This Mo Yen's fate is just too good. She's actually so close to the princess. She'll basically be able to get whatever she wants in the future. The middle-aged man who listened to Shi Yu's words became extremely envious. Even he, a god king, moreover one that had comprehended the laws of the sword, could not help but experience thoughts like these. The Shi Empire was not like those ancient empires. Instead, it was an eternal empire with chaotic primes. As the treasured daughter of the empire, she only needed to say something gently and what she would obtain would be enough for many god kings to become green with envy. Sister Shi Yu, have you found Patriarch Jian Chen? Mo Yen looked at Shi Yu in anticipation. Right now, she cared deeply for Jian Chen's safety. With that, Shi Yu became gloomy. She shook her head gently. I only know that Jian Chen has ridden a spatial battleship off the cloud plane right now. Finding him will be extremely difficult. However, I believe that Jian Chen will return. I hope Patriarch Jian Chen can return safely and not encounter any dangers out there. Mo Yen prayed for Jian Chen seriously. Afterwards, she said to Shi Yu, Sister Shi Yu, I miss father. I want to return to the Dong'an province. Yeah. I've come to find you this time to take you back to the Dong'an province with me. The imperial palace is nice, but in my heart, the Dong'an province is where we belong, Shi Yu said with mixed feeling. Suddenly, she looked at the sky and thought, Jian Chen, where are you? Do you know that I'm already the princess of the Shi Empire? I only need to utter a single word, and I can even mobilize the infinite primes of the empire. I have all the power in the world to make it such that the Tian Yuan clan is no longer threatened by the Empyrean demon cult. The vice leader of the Empyrean demon cult won't be able to cause any more problems for you. I just hope you can come back sooner. Of the past few years, today was the most lively day of the Tian Yuan clan. The entire clan was decorated with lanterns and decorations, and a huge banquet was set up. There was a merry atmosphere. This was because the princess of the Shi Empire, the daughter of the Shi Emperor, had personally come to the Tian Yuan clan. Perhaps it was more correct to say that she had returned to the Tian Yuan clan because the Tian Yuan clan was basically Shi Yu's home. As his only daughter, the Shi Emperor naturally spoiled her. Since she was heading out, he gave her a host of people to go with her. Just the god kings amounted to several. Moreover, even the master the Shi Emperor had found for his daughter, the infinite prime who had comprehended the laws of the sword and was a subject of the Shi Empire, had gone with her as well. He had even brought along a large number of resources that could assist Shi Yu's cultivation. The emperor had personally given them to him. Shi Yu's arrival naturally alarmed the divine king. He appeared in the Dong'an province as quickly as he could. Even the Heavenly Moon Empire, whether it was the imperial family or their two great sects, the Taoist sect of Calm Clouds, and the Earth Spirit sect, all sent god kings with rich gifts to visit the princess. Since your majesty is here, it's time for me to return, the infinite prime who had watched over the Tian Yuan clan during these past few years smiled. He was a ruddy old man, and he had come to the Tian Yuan clan with the Shi Emperor and the Empress originally. After the Shi Emperor had left, he remained in the Tian Yuan clan under his orders. Oh right. Your Highness, a vice-leader of the Empyrean demon cult is still in the Dong'an province. He's constantly paying attention to everything in the provincial city. He probably has ill intentions. Shi Yu's face sank when she heard that. Powerful killing intent flashed through her pretty eyes as she said to the simply dressed old man beside her, Master, can you find this person? Shi Yu's master was called Sun Fan. He nodded in response, yes. He's currently hiding in a corner of the provincial city. Although I haven't seen the three vice leaders of the Empyrean demon cult before, I have heard of them. He should be Huai. Then may I ask with your strength, who is stronger? Shi Yu asked as the light in her eyes flickered with uncertainty. Sun Fan burst out into a chuckle, my dear disciple, are you worried that I can't fend off this Huai? Ha ha ha, you don't need to worry at all. Huai is a first heavenly layer infinite prime only. I'm a fifth heavenly layer infinite prime. Shi Yu beamed. Afterwards, she gritted her teeth, Master, please chase Huai out of the provincial city. Sun Fan stroked the long white beard on his chin and chuckled, and your master I had thought that you wanted me to kill Huai. Huai is one of the vice leaders of the Empyrean demon cult. Although his personal cultivation is nothing in my eyes, the background of the Empyrean demon cult is just too powerful. Killing him would cause such a big problem that even your father won't be able to handle it. However, chasing him away is nothing difficult. I'll go do it right now." With that, Sun Fan vanished silently. Chapter 2019, Refining the Fifth Floor. Currently, the black-robed Huaiyan sat beside a pool of water in a manor located in an extremely remote area of the city. He held a fishing rod as he fished leisurely, but a fish had already bitten and taken the entire hook along with the bait away. On the contrary, Huaiyan did not react at all. Clearly, his mind was not on fishing. The princess of the Shi Empire, Xiu, has returned to the Tian Yuan clan. With how the Shi Emperor treats his daughter, there must be experts among her personal guards. God damn it, destroying the Tian Yuan clan has gotten even more difficult. Huaiyan's face was extremely sunken as he felt furious inside. Time was unable to dilute his fury and hatred. Although a few years had already passed, his urge to destroy the Tian Yuan clan did not weaken at all. Instead, it only grew stronger. However, in these past few years, a primordial realm expert had always protected the Tian Yuan clan, so Huaiyan never took action. As a result, he had continued to wait patiently in the provincial city, waiting to destroy the Tian Yuan clan after the primordial realm expert had left. However, he had never thought that after several years of waiting, the primordial realm still would not have left. Instead, the princess of the Shi Empire returned. "Huaiyan, this is not a place where you should be. Are you going to leave by yourself, or do you need me to ask you to leave?" At this moment, an old but simple voice rang out from behind Huaiyan. The voice had appeared without any prior signs such that Huaiyan's heart jumped, and he shot to his feet out of surprise when he heard it. Shiyu's master, Sun Fan, had appeared silently behind Huaiyan. Since Sun Fan was much more powerful than Huaiyan, and he kept his presence concealed, Huaiyan had failed to sense his arrival at all. "Who are you?" Huaiyan's expression became ugly. Looking at the old man, he understood that he was not the one who had been watching over the Tian Yuan clan. He was extremely likely to be the one who had accompanied the princess to the Dong'an province. He was bitter. The Shi Emperor was really willing to pay the price for his daughter, actually sending a primordial realm expert to protect her. Even in eternal empires, primordial realm experts were lofty existences. Their statuses were extremely special. "There's no need for you to know who I am. All you need to know is that if you don't leave here, I'll make you leave," Sun Fan said calmly. With that, the terrifying presence of a fifth heavenly layer infinite prime gradually surged out from his body. Huaiyan felt extremely furious when he sensed Sun Fan's strength. But in the end, he only snorted coldly and glanced at Sun Fan icily before leaving straight away. Sun Fan let out a soft sigh after Huaiyan had left. He said to himself with much helplessness, "Empyrean demon cult, if it weren't for the great elder behind you, would the cloud plane still allow you to exist?" A golden damaged tower hovered in a spatial crack. An extremely large spatial storm wreaked havoc in its surroundings, and this storm was so powerful that even infinite primes would struggle to break free once they were caught in there. In the tower on the first floor, Master Chanlong sat on the floor as he cultivated. He comprehended the way of formations as Kaya walked around the first floor by herself, constantly studying the surroundings. She observed every inch of the space around her carefully as bewilderment filled her eyes. She discovered that every single part of the place gave off an extremely strong sense of familiarity, but no matter how she thought about it, she did not understand where this sense of familiarity came from. Jian sat below a stone tablet like a statue on the 9th floor. He was still refining the Inata tower. The time within the spatial crack was a mess. It was even impossible to sense the passing of time, so even Jian himself had no idea just how much time had passed during his refinement. He had already refined the first 4 floors of the Inata tower. Right now, he was refining the 5th floor. The Inata tower possessed a total of 9 floors. If he wanted complete control over the Inata tower such that it truly became his god artifact, he would need to refine all 9 floors. However, after refining the first 4 floors, Jianchen discovered that although he did not possess complete control over the Enata Tower, his control over the tower had increased significantly. For example, he was able to move the Enata Tower around from the interior. However, he could only move it extremely slowly such that once something happened, he would not even be able to dodge with its speed. As a result, he needed to refine the fifth floor and increase his control over the tower. The refinement of the fifth floor was extremely arduous for Jianchen. He proceeded at an extremely slow pace, but he had completely forgotten about time, devoting himself to the refinement. After who knows how long, perhaps a few years, perhaps a few months, or maybe even a few decades, Jianchen finally refined the fifth floor. At this moment, Jianchen could clearly sense that it had become much easier to control the Enata Tower. As a matter of fact, he could clearly feel that with a single thought, he could make the tower move as he pleased with his eyes closed. This felt like a sliver of his soul had fused with the Enata Tower. Moreover, to Jianchen's delight, he discovered that he could use the most basic attacks of the tower after refining the fifth floor. However, the Enata Tower was already greatly damaged. Coupled with the Nirvanic Immortal Exalt suppression, the attacks from the tower were not overly powerful. Jianchen slowly opened his eyes and looked at the stone tablet that he had refined more than half of. Then he vanished silently. He did not refine the sixth floor because the fifth floor was his limit with his current strength. Jianchen returned to the first floor, and with a thought, he was connected to the world of the first floor. He immediately understood Master Chanlong and Kaiya's situation. Master Chanlong was comprehending the way of formations, so Jianchen did not disturb him. With a thought, he used the power of the first floor to move himself to Kaiya's location. Currently, Kaiya stood at the eastern edge of the first floor. It was called an edge because the space beyond that was destroyed, reduced to darkness. A huge sword hovered in the sky, suppressing the place. Kaiya currently stood there. Her head was raised as she stared at the figure of the sword the Nirvanic Immortal Exalt left behind in the past. Jianchen also looked up. He saw the huge strand of sword chi in the sky, and some amazement and pity appeared in his eyes. He said, "Kaiya, I can control the divine artifact such that it can move freely now. We'll be able to leave very soon." Kaiya returned to her senses. She looked at Jianchen and smiled, "We shouldn't hurry. Let's find a way to leave immediately. There's no sense of time here, so I don't know how long we've stayed here." Chapter 2020. Another brush with the primordial realm. Jianchen stared at the strand of sword chi that the Nirvanic Immortal Exalt had left behind as he felt pity. Right now, his comprehension of the laws of the sword had reached the peak of the partial achievement of sword spirit. He only needed a single step to reach the major achievement, but this step was not so easy to take. Although the Nirvanic Immortal Exalt sword chi lingered both inside and outside of the Enata Tower, they came from a sword god. To the current Jianchen, it was too high of a realm such that he could not even attempt to comprehend the sword chi. The main purpose of the sword chi was to suppress the Enata Tower, so they were filled with great offensive power. Without a certain level of strength, forcefully comprehending it could even result in a severe backlash from the sword chi, leading to no benefits at all. The backlash would be so powerful that Jianchen believed even god kings could die. Jianchen and Kaiya departed from there. Jianchen immediately controlled the Enata Tower to quickly move through the spatial crack in search of a way out. Due to the protection of the tower, Jianchen went from his previous cautious behavior to complete recklessness. He rampaged through the spatial crack whilst controlling the Enata Tower, directly colliding into powerful streams of energy and spatial storms on purpose. Only the temporal vortices made Jianchen fearful, and he would avoid them from afar whenever he encountered them. The damaged Enata Tower drifted through the spatial crack. In the chaotic space there, it was impossible to tell just how far he had traveled, nor was it possible to sense how much time had passed. However, Jianchen still failed to find a way out. Along the way, Jianchen discovered a group of floating corpses instead. Basically all of them were incomplete. Jianchen also encountered a few living people and personally witnessed the deaths of a god king and several overgods. They all fell into temporal vortices and experienced the reversal of time. In just a few seconds, they turned into newly born infants before vanishing completely. At the same time, Jianshan discovered some mere origin realm cultivators in the spatial crack as well. They struggled to survive. Surviving in the spatial crack completely depended on luck. If one's luck was poor, even primordial realm experts would face great danger, let alone god kings. This was because the space there was very unstable. It would warp and distort often, where the directions would become a great jumbled mess. People could fly past chaotic streams of energy from very far away and have them suddenly appear before them due to the messy space around them, catching them off guard. Even god kings would not be able to avoid it all the time. However, if their luck was good, even origin realm cultivators and people with cultivations even below that could survive for quite a long time in such an area. They might even find a way out. However, at this moment, Jianshan, who controlled the Anata tower from the first floor, changed in expression. Immediately, he moved to the side as quickly as he could. A huge hand condensed from energy appeared where the Anata tower was before, reaching over with terrifying might. If it were not for Jianshan's speedy reaction, the Anata tower probably would have fallen into the hand already. A primordial realm expert. Jianshan shivered inside as he immediately controlled the Anata tower to flee. It actually avoided it, a surprised voice rang out. An effeminate young man appeared where the Anata tower was before. He stared at the tower in the distance and murmured, looking at how damaged that tower is and how it's still able to rampage about fearlessly. It's a god artifact at the very least, and it is of quite great quality as well. This god artifact is mine. Before he had even finished speaking, the young man pursued with a flash. Naturally, the Anata tower did not move as quickly as an infinite prime. Very soon, the effeminate young man had caught up. Jianshan became grim as he controlled the tower. His direction suddenly changed as he charged towards the extremely distorted space nearby. There were powerful streams of chaotic energy and spatial storms everywhere in this area. The laws of the world were in a complete mess. When the young man saw the Anata tower charge towards a region of danger, he could not help but hesitate. However, he gritted his teeth and pursued. In the heavily distorted space, there was a spatial storm tens of thousands meters wide. Just like a huge tornado, it rapidly revolved on the spot. It wreaked havoc uncontrollably, giving off a frightening power. Over a dozen smaller spatial storms revolved around it as chaotic streams of energy ravaged the surroundings. They would collide from time to time, erupting with devastating might. Jianshan made the Anata tower fly directly into the largest spatial storm. He completely ignored its terrifying appearance, directly passing through it. At the same time, he tossed out a huge, two-handed sword from the Anata tower. He had found this sword in the space ring of the captain of the Swords Wolf adventurers. It was a supreme quality saint artifact. Boom! As soon as he tossed the sword out, it blew up loudly. Although the explosion of a supreme quality saint artifact was unable to cause any harm to an infinite prime, it still disrupted the peace there. Immediately, all the spatial storms and streams of energy became extremely violent in that region of distorted space. It unleashed devastating power, where even Jianshan who hid in the tower shivered as a chill ran down his spine. The eyes of the pursuing infinite prime narrowed as well. He immediately retreated. Even as an infinite prime, he did not dare to get too close. The laws were a mess in the spatial crack, so even he was unable to use the laws of the world, which greatly affected his strength. Do you think you can escape from me like this? Person in the tower, if you're smart, hand over the tower obediently. I can even take you out with me. Otherwise, I'll slaughter you mercilessly, the effeminate young man said coldly. After seeing how the Anata tower hovered safely in the terrifying spatial storm without budging at all, he desired it even more. Jianshan ignored the young man. He immediately controlled the tower to fly off into the distance while the young man's path was still blocked. He wanted to escape beyond the range of his senses before the space had stabilized. However, as soon as the Anata tower began to move, it halted. It did not drift off. Instead, it turned around and charged towards the center of the storm. On the first floor of the Inata Tower, Jianchen revealed much surprise and delight. He had discovered that when the storm had erupted, it actually ripped through the space there, creating a crack that led to the outside world. The Infinite Prime had clearly discovered the crack as well. His face suddenly changed, and he became frantic. He had also been searching for a way out for a very long time, but he had never thought the spatial storm would rip open one here. However, there was a terrifying spatial storm before him. Even though he wanted to pass through the crack and return to the Saints' world very much, he did not dare to approach it. What made him even more frustrated was that the tower-shaped god artifact completely ignored the devastating storm that he feared, rapidly approaching the crack. God damn it! The young man became red-faced from anger. He sent a powerful strike towards the devastating storm in an attempt to stop the Inata Tower from leaving, but his strike was unable to penetrate it at all. Instead, it made the storm before him even ferocious and violent, forcing him to retreat some more. In the end, the Inata Tower charged through the crack and vanished under the unwilling gaze of the young man. After passing through the spatial crack, Jianchen returned to the outer space of the Saints' world. He sensed the rather familiar landscape of outer space around him as he felt uncontainable joy. At the same time, he was filled with amazement. Jianchen struggled to remain calm when he thought about how he had drifted through the spatial crack, encountering dangers several times as he basically walked on the edge between life and death. He was able to survive so long in the spatial crack and make it through so many dangerous regions not due to his own strength, but because he had the tough Inata Tower. Without its help, Jianchen was not even sure he could make it back to the Saints' world alive with Kaya and Qianlong. With a flash, Jianchen, Kaya, and Master Qianlong appeared silently in the endless depths of outer space. Master Qianlong had emerged from seclusion recently and left the Inata Tower with Jianchen. Both Kaya and Master Qianlong felt like lucky survivors when they looked at the familiar landscape. They sighed emotionally. Master Qianlong, can you tell where we are right now? Jianchen looked around and asked Qianlong. Although they had escaped the spatial crack, Jianchen had completely lost his bearings in outer space. He had stowed the Inata Tower away as soon as he emerged. There were just far too many matters that involved the Inata Tower, so he could not expose it. He was only bold enough to use it in the abnormal space within spatial cracks. Once he returned to the Saints' world, he did not dare to take it out with his current strength. Master Qianlong stared at the boundless space in confusion and shook his head. It's the first time I've left the cloud plane as well. I don't have any star charts on me, so I don't know where we are either. Jianchen sighed gently with that. He said, if that's the case, we can only choose a direction and hope we come across someone we can talk to. Afterwards, Jianchen and Kaya entered a carriage that Master Qianlong had taken out. It was powered through formations, and after choosing a direction, it shot off. This journey would be a long one in outer space. The carriage was not even 1/10,000th of the spatial battleship's speed. Even after several days of riding the carriage, the stars around them did not seem to move at all. It formed a stark contrast to when the stars shot past in the surroundings on the spatial battleship before. However, the three of them were prepared for this. As a result, they cultivated in the carriage while they moved along. Several days later, Jianchen and Kaya opened their eyes at the same time. They looked into the distance and saw over 30 huge space beasts appear. The space beasts' eyes were red as they shot towards the carriage. There's one early god king. The rest of them are over-gods and gods. Jianchen stared at the space beasts in the distance. Space beasts were different from magical beasts. They only thrived in space and hunted and bred there. They absorbed the cosmic energy in space to strengthen themselves, and they basically never approached the planes or planets people inhabited. This was because the boundless outer space was where they belonged. It was their home, just like how a few human experts were used to living on land. Even if the seas and oceans drowned out the land, they would not go live in the water. However, perhaps due to an innate deficiency, the space beasts suffered from slight imperfections. As a result, they were unable to assume human forms. No matter how powerful they were unable to change their appearance, and their intellect would remain low. Even though some powerful existences possessed impressive intellect, it was nowhere close to the schemes that humans could come up with. Let's go deal with them as quickly as possible, suggested Kaya. Jianchen nodded and immediately charged out of the carriage with Kaya, killing their way towards the space beasts. Such a small group of space beasts was naturally no problem for Jianchen and Kaya. Very soon, Jianchen slew the God King space beast and collected its energy crystal. Kaya also slaughtered the remaining space beasts. At the same time, she took away their energy crystals before returning to the carriage with Jianchen to continue on their way. Time passed silently. Unknowingly, the three of them had already drifted through the deathly silent outer space for over a year. It was not too peaceful along the way. Space beasts regularly attacked them such that the carriage they used had already been destroyed, forcing them to fly by themselves. Across that time, countless space beasts died to their hands. Even God King space beasts amounted to over a dozen. They had even encountered a late God King space beast once. The three of them had fought through that battle with great difficulty, and they all suffered injuries of varying degrees. In the end, Jianchen and Kaya took on the responsibility of keeping the space beast busy while Master Chanlong cast down his most powerful killing formation. They only managed to defeat it under the assistance of the killing formation. Moving through outer space was extremely dangerous. If it were not for Jianchen and Kaya, two people with extraordinary battle prowesses, they would probably be dead. Probably even many God Kings would not be able to survive the threats they faced and would end up dead in the mouths of the space beasts. Just when the three of them passed by a meteorite, there was a sudden deep buzz. A large black mass surged out from the meteorite, forming a cloud that quickly began to surround the three of them. Their faces changed at this sight. They could already see that the black cloud was composed of winged space beasts around half the size of a human. Although their individual strength was not great, the number of them made their scalps tingle. In just a few seconds, the number of space beasts that had flown out reached over 1 million, and the number continued to increase at an extremely terrifying rate. Let's go. Jianchen called out before fleeing quickly with Kaya and Master Chanlong. There were just far too many space beasts. Once they were completely surrounded, it would be very difficult to break free. However, they still ended up underestimating the small space beasts that were not so powerful. Their wings buzzed, and they moved extremely quickly like streaks of light. They surrounded the three of them very soon. With a wave of his hand, Jianchen produced a great streak of light and killed several dozen of them instantly before attempting to charge out with Kaya and Master Chanlong. However, just when the three of them had been surrounded, a silver-white streak suddenly shot over from the distance. It was a spaceship only a few hundred meters long, and it moved extremely quickly. The spaceship was originally just passing by, but when it passed by the space beasts, it suddenly slowed down before stopping in the distance. I never thought I'd encounter a herd of soul-devouring beasts here. Since there's a herd, there must be a soul-devouring beast king, an old voice suddenly rang out from inside the silver-white spaceship. There was quite some joy and surprise in the voice. As the voice rang out, an old man in brown robes silently appeared on the spaceship's deck. He stared at the group of soul-devouring beasts that attacked Jianchen's group with quite some delight. The essence blood of the soul-devouring beast king is crucial for refining the cloud-rise pill, while the soul of the soul-devouring beast king is one of the important materials for the soul vitality pill. These pills are both god tier, the brown-robed old man murmured to himself as his eyes shone brighter and brighter. Soul-devouring beast kings were extremely rare in the saints' world, as not only did they live in the boundless outer space, making it almost impossible to find them, but there were extremely few of them as well. Hence, it was very difficult to encounter them usually. It would be a great fortune whenever someone found a soul-devouring beast king. This was because the soul-devouring beast king was basically a living treasure. The two god-tier pills both required crucial ingredients from the soul-devouring beast king. Great Elder, have we already arrived at the Neptunean Divine Palace? At this moment, a middle-aged man appeared beside the old man. He behaved with respect as he looked around the surroundings in doubt. The brown-robed old man looked at the trio trapped by the soul-devouring beasts and said, "There's still some more traveling to do before we reach the Neptunean divine palace. However, we might be able to benefit greatly from here." Benefit greatly? The middle-aged man appeared to be puzzled. However, when he discovered the herd of soul-devouring beasts up ahead, his eyes immediately lit up. With such a big herd of soul-devouring beasts, there must be a soul-devouring beast king. I never thought we'd come across such a great fortune on our way to the Neptunean divine palace. Great Elder, if we obtain a single soul-devouring beast king and refine the Cloud Rise pill and soul vitality pill, it'll hold great significance to the clan. The Great Elder nodded, "That's right. The Cloud Rise pill can increase the cultivation of people, and it's priceless, while the soul vitality pill is a god-tier pill for injuries to the soul, making it even more precious. An ancestral emperor of the Eternal Sky Empire just happens to possess an injured soul, and he still hasn't recovered yet. Once we refine the soul vitality pill from the soul-devouring beast king's soul and offer it to the ancestral emperor, it'll be a great merit for our Yun family. Our status in the southern region will rise up as a result." The middle-aged man was clearly overjoyed as well. He said, "The Great Elder cannot be more correct. Our Yun family might even be able to use this opportunity to form close ties with the Sky Empire. If that really does happen, will there still be anyone in the southern region who dares to provoke our Yun family?" Then, the middle-aged man looked at Jianchen, Kaya, and Master Chanlong, and a strange light flickered through his eyes. He said, "The three people encircled by the soul-devouring beasts possess extraordinary strength. They're clearly overgods, yet I can feel a presence no weaker than a god king from two of them. The young man and woman are indeed very powerful. They must be supreme overgods on the overgods plaque, and they must rank pretty high as well. It's just a pity that they've encountered a herd of soul-devouring beasts. These space beasts don't possess much individual strength, but there are so many of them that it'll just be an endless slaughter. Even god kings can be overwhelmed by so many soul-devouring beasts. If the three of them don't have any methods of escape, they'll be done for today." The Great Elder nodded. "However, if it weren't for the three of them that lured out the herd of soul-devouring beasts, I would not have been able to discover the soul-devouring beast king here. Since that's the case, allow me to help them out so that they can break free. It's just that there are countless more soul-devouring beasts hidden within the meteorite. Their existence can lure them all out, which will save me some work. I'll be able to deal with the soul-devouring beast king with even less difficulty." The Great Elder did not interfere in a hurry. Instead, he observed from the deck of the silver-white spaceship. On the other side, the trio was completely surrounded by the soul-devouring beasts now. At the very start, there were only around 1 million of them, but it had reached into the tens of millions or even over 100 million as soul-devouring beasts constantly emerged from the meteorite. From afar, it truly flooded the surroundings, making it a numbing sight. Even though the soul-devouring beasts were not powerful, without a single god king appearing among them, the number was just too great for Jianchen, Kaya, and Master Chanlong to kill through or even break free from. Surrounded by so many soul-devouring beasts, Jianchen remained calm and sent out the senses of his soul on the contrary. He carefully observed the meteorite in the distance. A while later, when soul-devouring beasts stopped flying out from the meteorite, Jianchen understood that probably all the space beasts hidden in there had come out already. At the same time, the light in the Great Elder's eyes who stood on the deck of his spaceship shone with excitement. The time to kill the soul-devouring beast king had arrived. However, just when the Great Elder rose up, a cold light flickered through Jianchen's eyes. He used the power from the ancient Skywolf's bloodline within him and unleashed a howl. Immediately, a proud wolf's howl rang through the surroundings. At that moment, Jianchen was clearly just a late overgod, but he erupted with an extremely terrifying presence. A huge wolf seemed to appear behind him, giving off a supreme pressure, where even the celestial bodies trembled. A terrifying sound wave in the form of a visible ripple expanded into the surroundings rapidly. The sound wave possessed extremely terrifying power, where the countless soul-devouring beasts around Jianchen were shaken to dust from it. In the blink of an eye, an area of several hundred meters across opened up around Jianchen. Although the soul-devouring beasts beyond that range had not been reduced to dust, they were still shaken to pieces. Even though many soul-devouring beasts had not been torn apart in even further places, they still died to the sound wave. In just that short period of time, over half of the countless soul-devouring beasts had died to Jianchen's howl. Although the remaining space beasts survived out of pure luck, they were all stunned as if they had lost their souls. They did not attack the three of them. "Let's go." Jianshen called out to signal to Kaya and Master Chanlong before immediately charging out as quickly as he could. Now that no soul-devouring beasts pursued them, it was their only opportunity to leave this place. Once the surviving soul-devouring beasts recovered, they would not be able to leave again. This was because the wolf's howl was unleashed through the power of the ancient Skywolf's bloodline. Now that all the power had been used up, it was impossible to use it a second time without a period of recovery. The great elder and the middle-aged man watched on from the distance. Shock and disbelief filled their faces. What is this battle skill? How does it possess such might? Seeing how the number of soul-devouring beasts had been instantly halved, the middle-aged man felt his mouth grow dry. He was completely shocked. What a terrifying howl! The great elder was also shocked. He seemed to remember something afterwards, and he immediately approached the meteorite. With a single step, he crossed the vast distance and appeared on it. As soon as Jian Chen's group charged out from the encirclement, they discovered that a spaceship was parked silently in the distance. The spaceship was extremely far away from where they were. Coupled with the fact that they were completely focused on dealing with the soul-devouring beasts, they did not sense its existence at all, nor did they sense when it had arrived. It was also at this moment that a screech rang out from the meteorite. A soul-devouring beast that was 3 meters long and flickered with violet light flew out. It was furious, directly charging towards Jian Chen's group. Beside it were 8 other soul-devouring beasts of similar sizes. They all were on par with God Kings and followed the soul-devouring beast king like guards. As for the soul-devouring beast king, it was not weak either, having reached the peak of God King. Chapter 2023, The Neptunean Divine Palace, 1. The expressions of Jianshen, Kaya, and Master Chanlong all changed suddenly when they saw the soul-devouring beast king that charged over from behind. Once it caught up to them, they would definitely encounter a tough battle. Hee hee. Soul-devouring beast king, I was just looking for you. I never thought you'd actually come out yourself. How nice. However, at this moment, the old man in brown robes suddenly appeared. His eyes shone as he stared at the soul-devouring beast king with excitement and struck out. The old man was extremely powerful, far greater than any god king. With just a wave of his hand, terrifying energy shook up the surrounding space, and the laws of the primordial realm descended, turning into several powerful energy attacks directed at the soul-devouring beasts. The might that the old man displayed shocked the violet soul-devouring beast king. It immediately let out a sharp screech, and it began to shine brightly with violet light. It came to a halt and began to retreat, turning into a blur. It fled into the distance with its greatest speed. In the blink of an eye, it became a black speck. It was about to vanish into the horizon. As a peak god king, the soul-devouring beast king indeed possessed some ability to escape from primordial realm experts. However, the 8 other god kings soul-devouring beasts around it did not possess such ability. The terrifying attacks of the old man struck them, and they all died. Hee hee, since you've come across me, soul-devouring beast king, how can I let you escape? The old man sneered. He opened his hand, and an imprint the size of a fist appeared. He directly pushed out with it. The imprint broke away from the old man's hand and swelled to several thousand meters wide in the space. It directly shattered the space there as it shot towards the soul-devouring beast king with destructive might. Space rippled wherever it passed by. On the other side, Jian Chen's group stopped as well. They looked at the old man deal with the soul-devouring beast king sternly as they paid attention to the silver-white spaceship in the distance. Looking at the size of the spaceship, it probably belongs to a sect or clan that has even primordial realm experts. Let's not make too much contact with them. Let's go, said Jian Chen. Although he wanted to ask about his current location very much, the appearance of the primordial realm expert had made him dismiss such thoughts. Naturally, Kaya had no objections to Jian Chen's suggestion. Seeing how Kaya did not object, Master Chanlong went along with Jian Chen's idea as well after hesitating slightly. Hold on, you three fellows. However, at this moment, a voice rang out from behind. The middle-aged man on the spaceship arrived before the three of them and clasped his fist with a smile. I come from the Yun family of the Sky Empire on the profound Thunder Plain. My name is Yun Lianqing. Seeing that you're here, you must be proceeding to the Neptunian Divine Palace. The three of them frowned when they heard that. They felt confused. What kind of place was the Neptunian Divine Palace? Why did he think that they were going to the Neptunian Divine Palace as soon as he saw them? Yun Lianqing paused. When he saw how the three of them had no intentions of talking, he continued, the space where we are right now is extremely far away from the Hinyu plane where the Neptunian Divine Palace is located. If you don't have a spaceship, it'll take several decades to get to the plane even with the speed of God Kings. Seeing how you don't seem to have a spaceship, you are welcome to hitch a ride on our Yun family spaceship if you don't mind. We just happen to be able to take you with us. Yun Lianqing spoke extremely sincerely. He had invited them from the bottom of his heart, as he had properly observed their strength from the spaceship earlier. As a result of what he had witnessed, he, a mid-god king, did not act haughty at all before them, treating them as equals. You've misunderstood, Sir Yun. We're not going to the Neptunian Divine Palace. We just encountered the attack of a powerful space beast, causing us to lose our bearings in outer space. If it's convenient for you, could you tell us where the closest plane is? Jian Chen clasped his fist. This immediately surprised Yun Lianqing. Ha ha ha, it's all because of the three of you that I was able to capture the soul-devouring beast king. If you had not drawn the soul-devouring beasts out and had not raised out attention when you faced the attacks of the soul-devouring beasts, we would have never known that a soul-devouring beast king would be hidden in such a small meteorite as we hurried past. At this moment, the brown-robed old man made his way over with a flushed face. He laughed aloud, as he was in a great mood. Then, the old man said, from where we are right now, the closest plane is the Hinyu plane. With the speed of our spaceship, we can reach there in roughly half a year. Without a spaceship, it'll probably take several decades or even over 100 years to reach the plane at the speed of a god king, and that's only if there are no ambushes from space beasts. Otherwise, it'll take even longer. Since you're lost in outer space, and you don't have a spaceship, why don't you board our Yun family spaceship? If that's the case, then we can only disturb you, Jian Chen agreed in the end after some thought. In reality, Jian Chen had been worrying about the Yun family spaceship the entire time because the battle prowess and talent he and Kaya had displayed were just too shocking. He believed that the people of the Yun family had clearly witnessed his battle against the soul-devouring beasts. Many large organizations would want to rope in powerful prodigies through various methods so that they could raise a sharp weapon. If they were unable to rope them in, some organizations would even take extreme actions. As a result, boarding the spaceship of the Yun family posed a certain amount of risk to Jian Chen. However, now that their primordial realm expert had already appeared, it was impossible for them to escape anyway if the Yun family had any ill intentions. Since that was already a possibility, he just acted with a broad mind and boarded the spaceship of the Yun family. Naturally, it would be for the best if the Yun family had no ill intentions, as it would save them several decades worth of traveling time. If they did have any other ideas, he could try to befriend them at the very least before they completely fell out. After a simple introduction, they all boarded the spaceship that was only a few hundred meters in length. The great elder of the Yun family had departed, leaving Yun Lianqing to receive the three of them. Jian Chen, Kaya, Chanlong, have you ever heard of the Neptunian Divine Palace? Yun Lianqing asked the three of them. Chapter 2024, The Neptunian Divine Palace, too, Jianchen could not help but grow curious about the Neptunian Divine Palace now that he had heard of it again. Sir, this is the first time we've come here, and it is also the first time we've heard of the Neptunian Divine Palace. May I ask what kind of place this Neptunian Divine Palace is such that it receives so much of your attention? Jianchen asked with a clasped fist. Yun Lianxing was immediately surprised when he heard that the three of them had no idea what the Neptunian Divine Palace was at all. However, he soon seemed to think of something, and he immediately grew enthusiastic. He looked at Jianchen and Kaya and said, "Since you don't know what the Neptunian Divine Palace is, allow me to explain its origins." Yun Lianxing paused there. He looked at the vast space outside and checked over his memories. Only after tidying up his thoughts did he say, "The Neptunian Divine Palace has existed for far longer than the history of our Yun family, so our understanding of the place also comes from information collected through various means in the Saints' world and some rumors. There's an extremely ancient rumor in the Saints' world that an extremely powerful sect used to be on the Hinyu plane. This sect was called the Daoist sect of Neptunia. The sect was extremely powerful, not only possessing millions of disciples, but they also had 4 supreme experts. These 4 experts were all Grand Primes, and they were known as the 4 great ancestors of the Daoist sect of Neptunia. The light in Yun Lianxing's eyes changed. Even with his mental fortitude as a god king, he struggled to remain calm at that moment. His breathing became slightly ragged as obvious respect and eagerness appeared in his eyes. He said in amazement, "Grand Primes are existences who stand at the very apex of the Saints' world. People like them can destroy a single eternal empire or sect with a wave of their hand, yet there was a total of 4 of them in the sect. You should be able to see just how terrifyingly powerful the Daoist sect of Neptunia was from that. A sect that actually had 4 Grand Primes. This Daoist sect of Neptunia really is terrifying." Jianchen could not help but sigh in amazement as well. The Daoist sect of Neptunia. The Daoist sect of Neptunia, Master Chanlong murmured to himself as he seemed to be recalling his memories. For some reason, he experienced another sense of familiarity when he heard the name of the sect as if he had heard it before, but he could not remember when or how. That's not all of it. There's a rumor from millions of years ago in the Saints' world that one of the 4 ancestors reached the peak of Grand Prime, only a single step away from Grand Exalt. They were known as one of the most powerful people below Grand Exalt. Yun Lianxing sighed in amazement as his emotions swelled. As a god king, he struggled to remain calm when he mentioned these paramount existences. "Sir, it seems like the Daoist sect of Neptunia is related to the Neptunian Divine Palace, right?" Jianchen asked curiously. Yun Lianxing nodded, "Indeed, they are related. This is because the Neptunian Divine Palace is the supreme divine hall of the Daoist sect of Neptunia as well as the only remaining object from the Daoist sect of Neptunia." Jianchen was stunned. He asked, "The only object remaining? Was the Daoist sect of Neptunia destroyed?" Sigh, Yun Lianxing let out a long exhale. He said, "Yeah, they were destroyed. The powerful Daoist sect of Neptunia was actually destroyed. It was said that they were destroyed by an unimaginably terrifying existence. It's quite unbelievable whenever I mention it." Jianchen gasped. The Daoist sect of Neptunia had a total of 4 Grand Primes, and one of them was even one of the most powerful people below Grand Exalt. With such a powerful group of people, a single person actually destroyed them. This was just far too shocking. Yun Lianxing continued, "You'd think that the Daoist sect of Neptunia was destroyed by the legendary Grand Exalts of our Saints' world, but that's not the case because there's a rumor that has withstood the test of time. It's said that the sect's destruction was not caused by the Grand Exalts of our Saints' world, but a supreme expert from another world." Jianchen's heart shivered when he heard that. He immediately thought of the Immortals' world when another world was mentioned. This was because only the Immortals' world possessed such strength from his understanding. After all, the Immortals' world also had 5 Grand Exalts, and they had even fought a war with the Saints' world. Several Grand Exalts had fallen during that clash. The Immortals' world. Jianchen thought. Although he was in the Saints' world right now, he technically belonged to the Immortals' world because the legacy he had obtained came from the Immortals' world, and so did the Sword Spirits. Yun Lianxing sucked in a deep breath and said, "Our Yun family has only been established for a little over 1,000,000 years, so our heritage isn't particularly great. As a result, we don't possess a lot of information, and we naturally can't verify this information either. It's just rumored that the other world is a place called the Immortals' World. It's said that the Immortals' World is an extremely powerful world, similar to our Saints' World in strength. The expert who destroyed the Taoist sect of Neptunia is a terrifying existence called the Samsaric Immortal Exalt. Even with the Taoist sect of Neptunia's full strength, they were not his opponent." Chanlong's eyes became even more lost when he heard the mention of the Samsaric Immortal Exalt. He also felt that this name was somewhat familiar. He was not the only one. Even the trapped soul in his space ring felt the same. Who is the Samsaric Immortal Exalt? Have we seen him before? No, I've never heard of a person like this before, much less see them, the trapped soul murmured secretly. Yun Lianxing continued, "This is because the Samsaric Immortal Exalt is no weaker than the Grand Exalts of our world. He's also an existence that has become a part of the universe, making him extremely terrifying. Before the Taoist sect of Neptunia was destroyed, all the experts of the sect hid in the Neptunian Divine Palace. However, the Samsaric Immortal Exalt controlled the power of samsara. He could rule over the universe and forcefully reverse yin and yang. He sent all the experts hidden within the Neptunian Divine Palace into samsara. However, whether they do go through samsara is not up to the Samsaric Immortal Exalt to decide. As a result, although it was said that all the people of the Neptunian Divine Palace were sent into samsara, none of them had the chance to reincarnate in reality. They were completely killed off. However, before the experts of the sect died, they left behind their legacies in the Neptunian Divine Palace. It said that just when the Samsaric Immortal Exalt wanted to destroy the Neptunian Divine Hall, a Grand Exalt of our world appeared. Afterwards, the Neptunian Divine Palace remained. But due to the formations there, it would only open once every 10,000 years. Additionally, due to the many legacies left behind by the experts of the Taoist sect of Neptunia before they passed away, it has become a land of fortune for the cultivators of our Saints' World. Yun Lianxing looked at the three of them and said, "And now, you know the origins of the Neptunian Divine Palace." Jian Chen exhaled deeply and said, "I never thought the Neptunian Divine Palace would have gone through something like that. The strength of the Samsaric Immortal Exalt sure is astonishing. He was actually able to destroy a sect as powerful as the Taoist sect of Neptunia all by himself with so much ease. Grand Exalts truly are powerful and terrifying. Moreover, the Grand Exalt of the Saints' World only appeared after he had slaughtered the entire sect. That means he had an extremely short amount of time to kill everybody." Jian Chen slowly calmed down. He stared at Yun Lianxing with great interest as he asked calmly, "When you first met us, you thought we were going to the Neptunian Divine Palace. Is it opening once again?" "That's right. The date when it opens is indeed drawing close. It'll open again soon. However, not everyone can enter the Neptunian Divine Palace. You need to be God King or below, and once you surpass God King, you won't be able to enter." Yun Lianxing had already recovered. He looked at Jian Chen's group and continued, "Moreover, you need to possess a Neptunian medallion to enter. That's the key to the Neptunian Divine Palace." Jian Chen frowned when he heard that. He said, "Do you know how to obtain a Neptunian medallion? And the Neptunian Divine Palace has already existed for over 1,000,000 years, and it opens once every 10,000 years. That means that it has been opened many times already across the years. Even if there are legacies in there, they're probably all gone, right?" Yun Lianxing nodded slightly. The Neptunian medallion is actually a disciple's medallion for the Taoist sect of Neptunia. When the great elders of the Taoist sect of Neptunia were forced into desperate straits by the Samsaric Immortal Exalt of the Immortals' World, they cast down a powerful formation to disperse the medallion across the Saints' World together. Obtaining it would depend on one's personal strength and luck. Of course, a few Neptunian medallions would wound up in various auctions before being purchased by various large organizations at a great price. Even our Yun family would struggle to pay such a great price. Yun Lianxing looked at Jianchen deeply and said with deep meaning, our Yun family also has a Neptunean medallion. A single medallion can let 20 people in. If the three of you are interested in the Neptunean Divine Palace, I can make the decision to give you 3 spots. Of course, please do not worry, Brother Jianchen. Although the Neptunean Divine Palace has been opened many times and many people have obtained great fortunes and legacies from there are still many legacies and treasure that remain unobtained. At the very least, of the legacies of the 4 grand prime ancestors of the Taoist sect of Neptunia, only one of them has been obtained in the past few million years. The 3 others remain in the Neptunean Divine Palace. As long as you're God King or below, you can enter the Neptunean Divine Palace. Coupled with how great of a temptation the palace is, wouldn't there be extremely many God Kings that enter when it opens? There might even be countless late God Kings. With the cultivations of us 3 at mere over God, how would we be able to stand up against a group of God Kings? Kaya asked with a frown. She and Jianchen were indeed very powerful, but when they fought alone, they could only barely handle mid-God Kings. Although the 3 of them had killed a late God King Space Beast when they worked together, Space Beasts possessed poor intellect. They could not be compared to the scheming God Kings experienced in battle. Dealing with them would naturally be far more difficult, and only Space Beasts of particularly powerful bloodlines were exceptions. This woman was the young lady of the Yun family, Yun and Xiao. But very soon, Yun and Xiao became angered. She said firmly, no, I don't agree to it. I spent a great amount of effort to persuade my father so that Hua Qi, Tang Ling, and Zhou Shaoqian would be my guards in the Neptunean Divine Palace. How can you just change them? Yun Lianxing said, Xiaoner, Uncle Qing understands that you're on good terms with the 3 of them, and I also know you spent a great deal of effort to persuade your father, making him agree to you taking the 3 of them with you. However, the Neptunean Divine Palace is simply far too dangerous. With Hua Qi, Tang Ling, and Zhou Xiaoqian's strength, they can't protect you at all. Every single person out of the 3 people I've found is extremely powerful. They're enough to make it onto the Overgods plaque. So what if they're Supreme Overgods? Are Supreme Overgods invincible in there? Aren't there many Supreme Overgods and God Kings from both the Overgods plaque and the God King's throne who take part every time the Neptunean Divine Palace is opened? Moreover, it's just training for me when I go in this time. I'm not really going to go fight for some legacy. The God Kings in the clan will go fight for those so-called legacies. It has nothing to do with me, so why must you change my guards? Yun and Xiao's beautiful face was filled with dissatisfaction and fury. Xiaoner, you can't change this matter because I've only done it with the Great Elder's permission. If you refuse to accept this, you can only go find the Great Elder yourself. Yun Lianxing smiled gently. Yun and Xiao's face changed when she heard that. Although her status in the Yun family was impressive, she understood extremely well that she could do nothing before the great elders that even her own father showed much respect to. In the dark, icy boundless cosmos, a streak of silver-white light flashed by, moving through space at a speed several times greater than lightning. It was a spaceship several hundred meters in length. Right now, Jianchen was dressed in robes as he sat on a soft, comfortable bed within one of the quiet cabins. He tidied through the items he obtained from killing space beasts in the past few days. There are over 30 Overgod level energy crystals and 8 God King level energy crystals, Jianchen murmured inside. He had obtained all these after he set foot in outer space. Of course, he had killed far more Overgod and God King space beasts, but not all of them went to him. Kaya and Master Chanlong both got a share each. Moreover, many special species of space beasts did not produce energy crystals, so even though the group had killed many space beasts during their time in outer space, they only possessed so little after dividing them up amongst themselves. The soul-devouring beasts they recently encountered were also a species that did not produce any energy crystals. Although the energy crystals from the space beasts are condensed from pure energy, they're clearly different from monster cores. The energy in the energy crystals is much more chaotic and unstable, so refining them will be more difficult than refining monster cores. However, the chaotic body I cultivate does not fear this at all. The side effects of absorbing these energy crystals pose absolutely no harm to me, Jianchen thought. At the same time, he felt rather helpless. In the past, his comprehension of the laws of the sword far exceeded his personal cultivation. He only lacked large amounts of resources. But now, he had already prepared all the resources for breaking through to the next layer, but he still had not broken through with his comprehension. This limited his cultivation such that he was unable to break through with the chaotic body. I hope I can reach the major achievement of sword spirit in the Neptunean divine palace. On a battlefield for god kings, I can't last for long at all with my current cultivation at late over god. Mid-god kings are my limit if I were to fight alone, and they have to be regular mid-god kings. Only when I reach the major achievement of sword spirit and reach the 12th layer of the chaotic body will I be able to put up a fight against late god kings. Jianchen peered through his small window to look out at the space outside as he felt eager. He was eager for the Neptunean divine palace. At this moment, a powerful presence appeared in one of Jianchen's neighboring cabins. Jianchen was slightly surprised when he sensed the presence, but he soon smiled faintly and stood up. The cabins to Jianchen's left and right housed Kaya and Chanlong. The presence originated from Chanlong's room. The presence had already surpassed over God and reached God King. Master Chanlong had actually broken through at this moment, formally becoming a God King. Very soon, Yun Lianxing arrived. He went to congratulate Chanlong on his breakthrough with Jianchen and Kaya. Yun Lianxing, who are they? At this moment, a rather cold voice rang out. A young man in luxurious robes with golden lining walked over from afar. He seemed to be in his 20s. Behind the young man were 6 other people of various ages. Without any exception, all of them were god kings. They were the peak power of the Yun family. Now that the Yun family had obtained a Neptunean medallion this time, they basically sent the peak force of the entire clan in search of fortunes so that they could forge a brand new future for the Yun family. There were over 10 god kings. If it were not for the fact that the Yun family had no more god kings, they would be tempted to fill up all 20 spots of their Neptunean medallion with god kings. The presence from Chanlong's breakthrough to god king had clearly alerted the experts of the Yun family who also cultivated in the spaceship. Yun Lianxing immediately introduced Jianchen and the others, and he stressed that Jianchen and Kaya were supreme overgods on the overgods plaque. Jianchen? Kaya? The young man, Yun Weifeng, frowned. He studied Jianchen and Kaya with a glare and growled, I remember all the names of the supreme overgods on the overgods plaque. However, your names don't seem to be on there. Before Jianchen could say anything, Yun Weifeng looked at Yun Lianxing and frowned. He said with quite some displeasure, Yun Lianxing, since our clan still has a few spots to spare, and we've decided to send in some overgods, they must all come from our Yun family. How can you just give these spots to outsiders? Moreover, your reasoning is hilarious. Do you seriously believe that any person you come across who claims to be a supreme overgod on the overgods plaque is actually a supreme overgod? Their names aren't on the overgods plaque at all. Yun Lianxing's face suddenly sank. He called out, Yun Weifeng. Jianchen, Kaya, and Chanlong are our esteemed guests. How can you speak to them like that? Moreover, I didn't make the decision. The Great Elder approved this personally. If you have any problems with it, you are more than welcome to find the Great Elder. Yun Weifeng immediately showed respect on his face when the Great Elder was mentioned. He looked at Jianchen and Kaya deeply without saying anything else. He turned around and left. After Yun Weifeng had left with his people, Yun Lianxing immediately smiled and apologized. Jianchen, Kaya, I hope you don't take offense for what has just happened. Jianchen smiled freely. He did not take it to heart at all. After conversing with Yun Lianxing a little more, they went their separate ways. The next part of the journey was quiet. Although there were quite a few people on the spaceship, basically everyone was in secluded cultivation during the journey, conditioning themselves to their peak for the upcoming battle. As a result, Jianchen, Kaya, and Chanlong passed that period of time peacefully. no one came to disturb them. "We're here." At this moment, the great elder of the Yun family's voice rang through the entire spaceship. Jianchen slowly opened his eyes and emerged from his room. He arrived on the deck with Kaya and Chanlong. When they arrived on the deck, over 20 people had already gathered there. Jianchen's group was the last to arrive. Chapter 2027, The Divine Palace Opens. 1. As soon as Jianchen's group made it onto the deck, the people from the Yun family gathered there all turned around and looked at them. Only Yun Lianqing treated the three of them amiably, immediately clasping his fist at them with a smile to expression his goodwill. It was completely sincere, without any faking at all. As for the other people of the Yun family, roughly half of them, with Yun Weifeng as their leader, looked at Jianchen's group with great hostility. The other half was cold, and their faces did not change at all. They seemed condescending as they studied Jianchen, Kaya, and Master Chanlong emotionlessly. Although it was the first time many of them had seen Jianchen and the others, they had learned of their existence several months ago. They also knew that these people took up 3 spots of their Yun family's Neptunean medallion. Although this displeased many people of the Yun family, they knew that the great elder had approved this, so they deeply suppressed their displeasure. However, the beautiful young lady of the Yun family in a pink dress immediately became furious when she saw Jianchen, Kaya, and Master Chanlong arrive. She planted her hands on her hips and called out, "The 3 of you, how can you be so late as my guards? Since you're guards, you should understand your responsibilities as guards. But why do I feel like you don't even know what a guard should do and what they should be aware of normally?" The young lady, Yun and Xiao, spoke louder and louder. At the same time, her expression grew colder and colder. She looked at Yun Lianqing unhappily and pointed at the trio with a slender finger. She struggled to hide her anger as she said, "Uncle Qin, look at the guards you found for me. They're not conscientious at all. How can they be compared to Hua Qi, Tang Ling, and Zhou Shaoqian?" The young lady's open criticism of the trio coupled with how she directly regarded them as her guards immediately made Yun Lianqing's face darken. His face sank slightly as he glared at Yun and Xiao. Just when he wanted to lecture her, Jianchen spoke instead. "You must be the young lady of the Yun family, Yun and Xiao, right?" "Miss Yun and Xiao, I am Jianchen." In regards to what the young lady said just then, I must reiterate some things, just in case Miss Yun and Xiao misunderstands, Jianchen said firmly as he walked forwards with Kaya and Master Chanlong steadily. Even though over a dozen god kings of the Yun family were gathered before them, the 3 of them showed no fear at all. Jianchen continued, "Miss Yun and Xiao, first, we're not your guards, so you have no right to meddle with what we do. Secondly, according to our agreement, we're only going to protect you once we enter the Neptunean Divine Palace, so before we go in, we don't bear the responsibility. And even after we enter the Neptunean Divine Palace, we're only protecting you for a year. We will assist you with whatever we have to obtain a legacy if we do come across one as well. After that year, there will be nothing more between us." Aside from Yun Lianqing, Jianchen's words left everyone in the Yun family somewhat surprised. They looked at Jianchen in a daze as they felt much disbelief. In the past, whenever an over-god had spoken to them, they were all polite and submissive. Yet, not only did this mere over-god show no fear before all these god kings of the Yun family, he even discussed his terms with them dramatically as an equal. This was the first time they had seen such a bold over-god. "Heh, your courage is indeed worthy of praise to talk terms with our Yun family. I just wonder if you have that right or not," a man who seemed to be in his early 30s sneered in the crowd. Vicious light flickered through his eyes. He had already taken out a step, appearing before Jianchen like he had teleported. He smiled coldly as he slapped at Jianchen. "Yun Shan, stop." Yun Lianqing's face changed suddenly as he called out coldly. He had never expected Yun Shan to attack Jianchen. He wanted to stop him, but he was already too late. None of the god kings behind them interfered. Including Yun Weifeng, a few god kings were already sneering scornfully. If Jianchen were a god king, there would have been no need for them to act like this when he mentioned his terms. However, he was only an over-god, yet he was still bold enough to talk terms with the Yun family. Moreover, he showed no respect to these god-kings at all, immediately infuriating many of the people present. They were more than happy to see Yun Shan attack him now. As a matter of fact, some people had already locked their gazes onto Qianlong. Qianlong was the only god-king among them. Although he had only broken through recently, he was clearly enough to raise their attention. If Qianlong wanted to interfere, they would step in at the same time to stop Qianlong from helping Jian Chen. However, to their surprise, not only did Qianlong, the only person they believed to have some hope in stopping Yun Shan, not move at all, but he even smiled mysteriously instead, which truly perplexed them. Jian Chen's face immediately turned cold from what Yun Shan was doing. At the same time, his indifferent gaze became extremely sharp. He did not dodge Yun Shan's attack at all. Instead, he clenched his fist and hurled it out with the powers of the laws of the sword and chaotic force. He struck Yun Shan's hand with lightning speed. Bang! A heavy sound rang out from the collision. Yun Shan only felt a great force strike his right hand, and he experienced excruciating pain. Immediately, he grunted uncontrollably before his entire right arm became numb. His right hand had been reduced to a bloody mess, and his entire arm drooped powerlessly. The cracking of bones seemed to be somewhat audible. Although Yun Shan was a god king, he was only an early god king. Even if he used his full strength, he was not Jian Chen's opponent. Coupled with the fact that he had underestimated Jian Chen and regarded him as a regular over-god, he did not even use his full strength during the clash. As a result, he suffered greatly from it. Behind, all the people who had witnessed this clash were shocked. The only exception was Yun Lianqing, who already knew Jian Chen's strength. Clearly, they struggled to accept this outcome. Yun Xian was stunned as well. She had heard from her uncle Qing that Jian Chen was a supreme overgod from the overgods plaque, but she never took it seriously because even the supreme overgods on the overgods plaque were nowhere close to god kings, aside from those ranked in the top 10. However, she had never thought that Jian Chen would be so powerful that Yun Shan would suffer from the first clash. Why, Yun Shan glared at Jian Chen in shock. His entire right arm had been shattered. The injury made him furious from the humiliation. Chapter 2028, The Divine Palace Opens, 2. A mere overgod had actually managed to injure him, a mighty god king, in an open confrontation. Moreover, the overgod emerged unscathed. This would definitely become a permanent stain to his name. How bold! Yun Weifeng was immediately infuriated. A powerful presence radiated from his body, enveloping Jian Chen. The presence had clearly reached late god king. Yun Weifeng was one of the only 2 late god kings in the entire Yun family. Jian Chen became stern. He could not deal with late god kings right now. He could only fend them off when working together with Kaya and Master Qianlong. Before Qianlong had broken through, the 3 of them were able to reach a stalemate against regular late god kings. Now that Qianlong had become a god king himself, Jian Chen was completely confident that they could kill late god kings if they worked together. Of course, that was given that the late god kings were not prodigies with great battle prowess or supreme god kings from the god king's throne. Enough. At this moment, a cold snort rang out. The great elder of the Yun family appeared on the deck silently as he glared at Yun Weifeng. Yun Weifeng's heart shivered from the glare while his surging presence immediately collapsed as well. He immediately bowed politely, "Greetings, great elder." "Greetings, great elder." Afterwards, all the people of the Yun family bowed at the old man politely. They respected him from the bottom of their hearts. "Greetings, senior." Jian Chen, Kaya, and Qianlong clasped their hands as well. The great elder looked at the 3 of them and said with an energetic voice, "My dear friends, if the people of my Yun family have offended you in any way, I hope you don't take offense." "How can senior say that?" "It's just a small misunderstanding," said Jian Chen. The great elder smiled amiably and looked at the people of the Yun family, Jian Shen and his friends will be going with you in this journey into the Neptunean Divine Palace. Once you're in there and you find that the three of them are in danger, you must assist them with all you have, understand? Yes, Great Elder. The people of the Yun family looked at Jian Shen with mixed feelings. Since the Great Elder had said that, they did not dare to show any disrespect towards Jian Shen's group on the spaceship anymore. Jian Shen understood inside that the Great Elder's words were actually for them to hear. It was something he said to maintain their relationship and could not be taken seriously. After all, no one outside would know what would happen in the Neptunean Divine Palace. Once they entered the Neptunean Divine Palace, they would be fortunate if the people of the Yun family did not turn against them at a critical moment, let alone relying on their help. The Great Elder's voice rang out again. Although the Neptunean Divine Palace opens once every 10,000 years, it'll vary by several months or even years. Remain on the spaceship and wait for the opening. Do not leave the spaceship during this time. Organizations of various sizes from the nearby planes have gathered in this region of space now. Our Yun family cannot afford to offend many of these organizations, so do not provoke them. Don't stick your noses in unwanted business either. I'll be going to the Hinyu plane to visit an old friend, so I won't be able to watch over you in the next period of time. With that, the Great Elder left the spaceship and disappeared into the endless cosmos in the blink of an eye. Are we really at the Neptunean Divine Palace? Jian Shen was surprised when he watched the Great Elder leave. He looked around and discovered that they were still in outer space. There was not a palace in sight at all. You may not know, Brother Jian Shen, but when the Taoist sect of Neptunia still existed, the Neptunian Divine Palace was indeed located on the Hinyu plane. However, when the Grand Exalt from the other world destroyed the sect, the Neptunian Divine Palace was struck into outer space. Our current location is roughly where the Neptunian Divine Palace is. Seeing Jian Shen's doubt, Yun Lianxing immediately explained, due to formations, the Neptunian Divine Palace is always hidden in space, making it difficult for others to find its exact location. It'll only be exposed when it opens. Jian Shen understood. He slowly arrived at the bow of the ship and stood there. The landscape around him suddenly opened up, and immediately, he felt like he could see all of space. However, Jian Shen's eyes narrowed soon afterwards. He suddenly gazed into the distance and discovered many spaceships parked in the surroundings. Every single spaceship was extremely far away from one another, such that even when Jian Shen expanded his soul on par with God Kings, he was unable to approach the other spaceships. Jian Shen could even see some figures in the distance, but due to being too far away, he was only able to barely make out a blurry figure. Even further away, Jian Shen discovered a hand-sized piece of land floating in the endless cosmos. He could see a few bodies of water stretched across it, dividing the land into several regions. Jian Shen knew that the Hinyu plane only seemed like the size of a hand because it was just too far away. But in reality, to Jian Shen's shock, the Hinyu plane was several times larger than the cloud plane in area. Jian Shen and the other god kings of the Yun family began to wait for the divine palace's opening. Due to his conflict with Yun Shan, the god kings of the Yun family understood Jian Shen's strength. As a result, the god kings did not try to provoke him during this waiting period. Clearly, they had begun to accept Jian Shen. Even the young lady of the Yun family had shut her mouth obediently. However, she still felt much displeasure seeing how Hua Qi, Tang Ling, and Zhou Shaoqian, which she had spent so much effort to convince her father to come along, had been replaced. Naturally, she did not have a good opinion of Jian Shen's group. Although it could be said that Jian Shen had gained a stable footing here, the other people of the Yun family kept their distance from him and did not make any contact or conversation with him, aside from Yun Lianxing. Jian Shen did not care about this at all. He cast down a simple formation with Kaya and Chanlong before sitting down on the deck to continue his comprehension of the laws of the sword. Humph, you can be complacent now. I'd like to see whether you're still able to act so arrogantly once you enter the Neptunian Divine Palace. Yun Xiao glared at the three of them in resentment as she snorted inside. In the blink of an eye, Jian Shen had already waited for 3 months. He still did not break through in those 3 months of comprehension. Instead, he witnessed quite a few battles. They were extremely intense and even infinite primes took part. More and more people gathered in the region of space, where the number of spaceship gathered there had reached above 1,000. There were even more people on those spaceships. At this moment, Jianchen suddenly opened his eyes, and a gleam of light shone through them. He stared at the space ahead. At the same time, Kaya and Master Chanlong seemed to sense something as well, opening their eyes along with Jianchen. Kaya called out, "The Neptunian Divine Palace is opening." With that, an extremely terrifying pulse of energy suddenly erupted with tremendous pressure in space. Like a tsunami, it flooded the surroundings in an overwhelming manner. The entire region shook from the terrifying energy, creating ripples in space. Suddenly, the space ripped open and formed an extremely huge crack. A huge, dark blue hall over 100,000 meters long and several tens of thousand meters high gradually appeared from the crack. Chapter 2029. Yun and Xiao Man. The huge divine hall hovered in outer space and radiated with a pressure so great that not only did it fill the experts gathered around with angst, but the entire region of space trembled and shook as well. It was as if the divine hall reigned over the region, where its appearance had directly suppressed the world. It seemed to give off a paramount presence. The Neptunian Divine Palace has appeared. It has been 10,000 years. I am finally able to see the Neptunian Divine Palace again. I wonder if the 3 remaining Grand Prime legacies will go to anyone now that the Neptunian Divine Palace has opened again. With the appearance of the Neptunian Divine Palace, discussions immediately began to ring out in space. The eyes of many people who were prepared to enter burned with desire. They rubbed their hands eagerly as they radiated with battle intent. The god kings of the Yun family looked at the Neptunian Divine Palace as well. All of them were eager. They anticipated the various legacies in there eagerly. Jianchen, Kaya, and Master Chanlong stared at the huge Neptunian Divine Palace instead. They were different from the god kings of the Yun family, as their faces were completely stern. In the eyes of others, the Neptunian Divine Palace may have been a land of fortune, but to the 3 of them, it was also a cruel battlefield. With a flash, the great elder of the Yun family arrived before everyone. He had returned from his visit to his old friend already. He stared at the Neptunian Divine Palace deeply and said with his back to everyone, "The Neptunian Divine Palace has opened. Be prepared for entry. I've already told you what I need to say, so I won't repeat it." The great elder turned around and looked at the people present sternly. He said, "You are the hope of the Yun family as well as the future of the clan. Remember, you must walk out of the Neptunian Divine Palace alive. I will be waiting for your return. Don't worry, great elder. We will definitely do everything we can such that you won't be disappointed," said the god kings. They spoke loudly and with much energy. They were all at their peak conditions. As for Yun Shan's broken arm, it had already recovered. An injury like that was not heavy at all to a god king. The great elder nodded. He looked at Jianchen, Kaya, and Chanlong and said, "I'll be troubling the 3 of you to look after the descendant of my Yun family for a year. Don't worry, senior. We will protect Miss Yun Xian with our utmost ability in that 1-year period." Jianchen, Kaya, and Chanlong clasped their fists. This was a deal they had made with the Yun family as well as the price they had to pay for a spot into the Neptunian Divine Palace. Yun Xian looked at the trio and pouted unhappily. She thought, "Protect me? Who needs that? Wait until we're in the Neptunian Divine Palace, and I'll show you how I'll deal with you all." Although I can't beat you, finding trouble for you is nothing difficult. The great elder had already stowed away the spaceship. He flew through space quickly with everyone, rapidly approaching the Neptunian Divine Palace. Countless figures approached the Divine Hall as well from all directions. As more and more experts gathered, countless presences became gathered together, forming a terrifying pressure that filled the space there. It caused the space there to thicken as it became quite suffocating. The closer to the Neptunian Divine Palace, the more powerful the pressure was. Even god kings found it rather difficult to endure. After all, the Neptunean divine palace possessed great fortunes. In particular, the legacy of their strongest ancestor, the one known as one of the most powerful people below Grand Exalt, was an irresistible temptation to even powerful organizations that possessed chaotic primes. As a result, not only were there many infinite primes gathered in the space there now, but there were even chaotic primes. Although there were extremely few chaotic primes with an entire plane in perspective, each opening of the Neptunean divine palace would be enough to gather the experts and organizations of many planes and planets nearby. As a result, many primordial realm experts would appear outside the Neptunean divine palace. Immediately, many overgods and god-kings who were going into the Neptunean divine palace came to a halt. The presence near the Neptunean divine palace was so powerful that it forced them to a halt, and they no longer dared to advance any further. Jian Chen's group and the people from the Yun family stood behind the Great Elder. The Great Elder gave off the powerful presence of an infinite prime to protect those behind him so that he could carve out a path towards the Neptunean divine palace. In the surroundings, many other infinite primes also used their cultivation to protect their people. Like a sharp blade, they pierced through the seal created from the presences of many primordial realm experts, and they quickly made their way towards the Neptunean divine palace. There were even a few chaotic primes who had already arrived before the entry of the Neptunean divine palace with their juniors. They would only relax when they saw their juniors disappear from the outside. The journey to approaching the Neptunean divine palace had already become a secret competition and battle between the primordial realm experts. The stronger they were, the faster they could move, and the earlier they would approach the Neptunean divine palace. The weaker people naturally ended up towards the back. Through this, Jian Shen discovered that the Great Elder of the Yun family was around the same as an average infinite prime. In the end, when they all reached the steps of the Neptunean divine palace under the accompaniment of the Great Elder of the Yun family, the other primordial realm expert stopped there as well, without advancing any further. As he stood there, Jian Shen could clearly sense that up ahead, a frightening energy pulsed. After looking at the Great Elder again, he discovered that as expected, after the Great Elder had arrived on the steps, he became stern and cautious. This seriousness and cautiousness were not caused by all the primordial realm experts gathered around. Rather, it was due to the Neptunean divine palace itself. I can only accompany you to here. The rest of the journey will be up to you. The Neptunean medallion will teleport you in, the Great Elder said sternly before taking out the Neptunean medallion. As soon as the Neptunean medallion appeared, a dazzling blue light surrounded the 20 people, and with a flash, they all disappeared. Only after these infinite primes had departed could the god-kings and overgods without the protection of a primordial realm expert continue onward and enter the Neptunean divine palace through their Neptunean medallions. At this moment, another two figures approached the space where the Neptunean divine palace resided. They did not move quickly, where even their top travel speed seemed as slow as snails. They were two females. One of them seemed to be in her 20s, and she was beautiful. Her skin was white and soft, while her body was slender. Although she was not exactly alluring, she was still extremely pretty. She was only a late overgod. The other person was a girl. She seemed to be 15 or 16 years of age and seemed innocent and young. She constantly stared at the Neptunean divine palace with her bright eyes. It looks like the Neptunean divine palace has only just opened, and some people haven't entered yet. Fortunately, we weren't late, and we still made it, the older woman sighed with relief. Sister, is this the Neptunean divine palace? Why have we come from so far away to this place? The girl studied the Neptunean divine palace as she asked in confusion. The older woman looked at the girl gently and said, Xiao Man, your mother told me before she passed away that I had to bring you here no matter what. If Jian Shen were present, he would definitely recognize the two of them with a single glance. They were Yun and Xiao Man, who he encountered back on the spatial battleship that he had boarded in the southern region of the Cloud Plain. Chapter 2030, Within the Divine Palace, Mother. Xiao Man could not help but think of the old, extremely blurry figure that only existed in her memories when she heard Yun's words. Her eyes reddened slightly as she showed deep sorrow. Her mother had departed far too early. Just when she had turned 3 years old, the old figure who had carried her every day and gave her deep, motherly love had left her. Even though Xiao Man was only 3 years old when she saw her mother for the last time, she still had not forgotten everything that had happened when she was young. It had just become slightly blurry. As for her father, Xiao Man never met him before, as he had already passed away before she was even born. There were no images or memories. In the past few years, Xiao Man had only learned a little about her father from her sister Zi Yun. This was because her sister Zi Yun had seen her father. Everything she knew about him came from her. Xiao Man only knew that her father was an old person with a head full of withered hair from Zi Yun. Her mother was a hunchbacked old woman, making both her parents extremely old. Sister Zi Yun, do you know how my parents died? Since my father taught you everything, doesn't that mean he's not an ordinary person? And my mother is not ordinary either, right? Since they're not ordinary, they can't have passed away from age, asked Xiao Man with red eyes and sorrow. As she grew older, she understood more and more things. Now that she thought of the past, she realized that there were many illogical factors to her parents' deaths. Zi Yun shook her head. She was unable to answer these questions, as she did not know how to answer them at all. She did not understand what had happened to Xiao Man's parents either. The only thing she was certain about was that Xiao Man's parents were no ordinary people. Even though she could clearly sense that Xiao Man's parents had no cultivation and that their bodies were sometimes not even as great as ordinary people, everything she learned as well as the various powerful secret techniques and treasures for fleeing came from her master, who was also Xiao Man's father. Aside from her master, even her master's wife, Xiao Man's mother, had passed many things on to her. Not only did these things include comprehensions and knowledge on cultivation, but it also included the various brutal aspects on the saint's world and so on. As such, she already possessed a clear understanding of the outside world before she set foot there. It was impossible for an ordinary person to know these things. Most importantly, Zi Yun had spent over 10,000 years with Xiao Man's parents. If they were truly ordinary people, it would have been impossible for them to live for this long. However, when Xiao Man's parents passed away, they had no wounds at all. No matter the perspective, it seemed like a natural death, like an ordinary person reaching the end of their lives. There were no other reasons. Xiao Man, let's enter the Neptunean Divine Palace, Zi Yun said softly and approached the Neptunean Divine Palace with Xiao Man. She vanished using the Neptunean medallion she had obtained from Xiao Man's parents. When Jianshan appeared again, he discovered that he was in a long hallway. Apart from Kaya, Chanlong, and the 17 people from the Yun family, there was no one else around him. Brother Jianshan, the delivery location of each Neptunean medallion is unstable, where it can be anywhere on the first floor, Yun Lianqing said to Jianshan. He studied the surroundings and said, it's the first time we've come into the Neptunean Divine Palace as well, but we have heard of some things about the situation in here. The Neptunean Divine Palace has a total of 12 floors. The higher the floors, the more powerful the legacies. It's said that the Grand Prime ancestors have left their legacies on the highest floor. Yun Lianqing, all they can do is wander around the more remote places, so what are you telling them this for? Knowing more is not necessarily beneficial for them, Yun Weifeng snorted coldly before Yun Lianqing had even finished speaking. Yun Weifeng is right. Who knows whether they'll run off to the 12th floor ignorantly after they know this and accidentally offend some powerful person there. Wouldn't that be causing problems for our Yun family for nothing? Yun Shan snorted coldly as well. Due to his own carelessness, Jian Shen had broken his arm from a single clash. He still clung on to this matter, so he was naturally hostile towards Jian Shen. Yun Lianqing thought about their words and found it to be reasonable. Telling this to Jian Shen really did not benefit them. They would basically be sending Jian Shen's group to their deaths if they were unable to resist the temptation of a Grand Prime's legacy and ran off to the 12th floor rashly with their current strength. He was left temporarily speechless. He could only bid farewell to Jian Shen before leaving with the God Kings of the Yun family. In the blink of an eye, the 16 God Kings of the Yun family vanished from the hallway, only leaving behind Jian Shen, Kaya, Chanlong, and the emotionless young lady of the Yun family, Yun Xian. Afterwards, the three of them left with Yun and Xiao Man as well to wander the first floor of the Neptunean Divine Palace. The interior of the structure was extremely large. From the outside, it only seemed to be a few 100,000 meters in length, but in reality, its interior was countless times larger. Along the way, the four of them discovered many remains of experts who had died in here as well as traces of many destroyed formations. Ever since the Taoist sect of Neptunia had been destroyed, the Neptunian Divine Palace had already been opened several hundred times. For the sake of the legacies in there, it was naturally impossible to avoid bloody conflict, which left behind many corpses. However, at the same time, all the legacies on the first floor had been cleaned out. There was nothing of value left. This was because the disciples on the first floor of the Neptunian Divine Palace naturally were not particularly powerful. Obviously, it was extremely easy for the outsiders to obtain their legacies, unlike the four ancestors who managed to stop countless people. In the blink of an eye, Jian Chen's group had already remained on the first floor for several days. They basically wandered through the entire floor, but they failed to find anyone else. Jian Chen did not find this to be strange at all. Basically everyone who entered the Neptunian Divine Palace knew that there was nothing on the first floor, so they directly made their way to the second floor as soon as they entered. It was probably only because Yun and Xiao Man was not in a good mood, which was why they remained on the first floor that was littered with remains for so long. Miss Yun and Xiao Man, if you keep wasting your valuable time here, you won't benefit at all once our year-long agreement comes to an end, Jian Chen could not help but say. The Neptunian Divine Palace was only open for 10 years. It seemed very long, but it was actually an extremely short period of time. It was like a huge loss to Jian Chen for Yun and Xiao Man to waste time like this. Why do you care? I just happen to like it here. What can you do? Yun and Xiao Man glanced at Jian Chen as her lips curled into a sneer. She said, as for any benefits, do you really think you can obtain some expert's legacy in the Neptunian Divine Palace with your strength? He, I really do have to say that you're taking this far too simply. It's not that I'm looking down on you. Although you have an early God King with you, that's nothing in the Neptunian Divine Palace. None of the remaining legacies that everyone has failed to take in the past are easy to obtain. If you want to contend for them, then it's just wishful thinking. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.